Good morning. Today is Thursday, February 27th, and this is the time and place for the regularly scheduled Nevada Gaming Commission meeting for the month of February. If you would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, has our agenda been posted in accordance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
All right, at this time, I would like to remind anyone coming to the podium to speak. We ask that you speak directly into the microphone and speak as clearly as possible, because this meeting is being both transmitted electronically and transcribed by a court reporter. Madam Secretary, if we could please proceed with our first agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
All right, anyone who wishes to address the commission may do so at this time. Matters brought to our attention during public comment cannot be acted upon, but we are happy to hear comments of the public as well as any comments from my fellow commissioners. Comments by all will be limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If any of my fellow commissioners or myself ask questions of the public, the time needed to address those questions will not be held against those time constraints. If you have any handouts or prepared copies of your comments to provide, please do not approach the dais with them. An enforcement agent will come and take them from you. At this time, I will go to Carson City. Is there anyone present in Carson City who wishes to make public comment?
No, not at this time, Chair.
Thank you. Here in Las Vegas. I guess I should say Boulder City, right? Oops.
Años como kitchen worker. Estoy luchando para que mis beneficios estén asegurados por un contrato y para que mis compañeros y yo tengamos seguridad laboral. Tenemos más de 10 años luchando y hace 6 años atrás ganamos nuestra elección sindical. Y Station Casinos dijo que respetaría la decisión de los trabajadores. Todavía no hemos visto ese respeto. Station Casinos no es una compañía justa porque no recibimos aumentos iguales. Lo dan por desigualdad y favoritismo. Y no es justo para nosotros como trabajadores, porque los miembros de la culinaria reciben sus aumentos por igualdad. Por eso seguimos luchando por un contrato justo. Gracias.
English translation now. So, my name is Mercedes Cabrera. I have worked at Green Valley Ranch for 17 years as a kitchen worker. I'm fighting for my benefits to be guaranteed by a contract and for my colleagues and I to have security in our jobs. We have been fighting for more than 10 years. 6 years ago, we won our union election, and Station Casino said that I would respect the workers' decisions and that we still have not seen that respect. Station Casinos is not a fair company because we do not receive equal raises. They give it because of inequality and favoritism, and it is not fair to us as workers, because the members of the culinary union receive their raises because of equality. That is why we continue to fight for a fair contract. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I myself have a comment as well, unless you want me to.
No, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, Brianna Carbajal for the Culinary Union. Essential to a law enforcement system is telling the truth and nothing but the truth in law enforcement proceedings. As we have told you before, the National Labor Relations Board found that top executives at station casinos testified under oath in a 2021 federal proceeding with such an unusual degree of evasiveness and wholly implausible forgetfulness that a judge was fully warranted in discounting their testimony as generally unreliable except where independently corroborated or against the respondent's interest. At question was whether the chief operating officer and the chief legal officer, the chief financial officer, and its vice president of HR charged with overseeing labor strategy provided credible testimony about that labor strategy and how they discussed it with owners of the company. In law enforcement proceedings, gaming company executives need to give credible, truthful testimony about significant company strategies and how owners engage in those strategies. No gaming company or its executives should have a problem testifying truthfully and without evasiveness in any kind of law enforcement proceeding. In 2021 hearing, a lawyer for the federal agency tasked with labor law enforcement questioned the HR executive in charge of labor strategy about mud lists, which are lists that station created indicating which employees were pro-management, pro-union, and which were don't know. The lawyer for the government asked the executive, "So would there be a departmental mud list?" The executive responded, "Sure." The government lawyer then asked, "Have you ever seen one of them?" The station executive asked, "Have I physically seen a mud list?" The government lawyer responded, "Yeah, let's say for Red Rock." "No, I have never seen one," the station executive responded. We find this testimony to be highly implausible. The same station executive was responsible for introducing the concept of mud list to the company, for providing training to managers about creating mud lists, and for reviewing mud lists with subordinates as part of station scheme to get rid of the union. We think it defies belief that he never saw one of the lists that he instructed those under him to create. We encourage the board to ensure all license holders give credible testimony when under oath. If they can't do that, they don't deserve to be gaming under enterprises in our state. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the record should reflect that both speakers have given us a copy of their comments. Is there anyone else present here in Boulder City that wishes to make public comment? All right, before we conclude the public comment section, on behalf of the commission, I would like to again thank the city of Boulder City, the mayor, the council people, the staff, including and not limited to IT, security, and all the folks that it takes for us to be able to have a meeting here. We are greatly appreciative of your hospitality again. And at this time, that would close our public comment section. Madam Secretary, the next item on our agenda is approval of the prior month's disposition.
Pursuant to NRS 241.035, this item is the consideration of the approval of the Nevada Gaming Commission disposition for January 2025.
Each of us has had the opportunity to review the disposition. If there are no questions, I believe it's in proper form for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the prior month's disposition.
Any discussion on the motion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Or none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read in the restricted consent items.
Your items on the restricted consent agenda this morning are items 2, 4, and 5. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
As far as the items on the consent agenda, does any of the commission members have any comments before I call for a motion? There being none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move for approval of restricted consent items 2, 4, and 5,
And is that what the recommendation?
as
for-
recommended by the Gaming Control Board. I'm sorry.
Okay, so motion is for the items 2, 4, and 5 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board for approval with their conditions proposed. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, that brings us to our non-restricted agenda items held out for discussion. If you could please read in non-restricted number 1.
Non-restricted number 1 are the applications of MGM Resorts International, Mandalay Resort Group LLC, and Entain PLC for an amendment to order of registration. It is also the applications of BetMGM LLC doing business as BetMGM doing business at the following entities: Aria Resort and Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, Bellagio Racebook and Sports Pool, the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas Racebook and Sports Pool, Excalibur Hotel and Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, Luxor Hotel and Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, MGM Grand Hotel Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, New York Hotel and Casino Racebook and Sports Pool, and Park MGM Racebook and Sports Pool for a non-restricted gaming license, Racebook and Sports Pool only, and for licensure to conduct off-track parimutuel race wagering. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Madam Chair, that would be my disclosure. I'd like to disclose that Mr. Scherer, who's representing BetMGM today, has previously served as my personal attorney in multiple matters, but I conclude that the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation would not be materially affected by this relationship. I therefore intend to fully participate in the consideration of this matter. Good morning, Mr. Scherer.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, and Madam Secretary. For the record, I am Scott Scherer of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, appearing today on behalf of BetMGM. Also present on behalf of BetMGM are Joshua Weissman, Director of Licensing, and Wendy Martin, Director of Compliance, AML, and Fraud. Ms. Martin is one of BetMGM's key management team members who is located here in Southern Nevada. I would like to thank Special Agent Heather Lambert, Agent Colin Lane, and Supervisor Matt Doyle for their assistance with these applications. I'll step aside for a moment to allow Mr. McGinnis and Ms. Okerberg to introduce themselves and their clients.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Secretary Rupert. For the record, Sean McGinnis with Butler Snow on behalf of MGM Resorts International.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, I am Erica Okerberg, appearing on behalf of Entain. Here with me via Zoom is the General Counsel for Entain, Simon Zinger. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. And I forgot to note that on behalf of BetMGM, we also have Rhea Loney, who's the Chief Compliance Officer, and Sarah Brennan, Senior Director of Compliance, available on Zoom if there are any questions for them. Madam Chair, I made a brief affirmative presentation to the board, and I'd be happy to make that presentation here, perhaps in a slightly abbreviated form.
Thank you.
Some of this presentation may retrace things you already know, but I think it'd be helpful to set it all into context. BetMGM is a company that is owned jointly by MGM Resorts International and by Entain PLC. Each company owns 50% of BetMGM, and they have equal representation on the BetMGM Board of Managers. The agreement between MGMRI and Entain provides that where permissible by law, BetMGM will run the race and sports wagering operations of MGMRI subsidiaries using technology and support from Entain subsidiaries. BetMGM was licensed initially as a manufacturer, distributor, and operator of a sports information service. Shortly thereafter, BetMGM was also registered as an information technology service provider. This licensing structure was discussed with the board chair at the time and with the investigations division, and we believed it was adequate to allow BetMGM to have substantial involvement in the race and sports operations of MGMRI and its subsidiaries. Over time, concerns arose with regard to BetMGM's role in the race and sports operations of MGM. In response to those concerns, BetMGM sought additional licensing as a key employee so that it could be involved in the management of race and sports operations. That license was granted at your December meeting. BetMGM also sought a license for a non-restricted gaming establishment with a racebook and sports pool, a small operation in Reno. That license was previously granted, qualifying BetMGM to seek the licenses for satellite race and sports operations that are on your agenda today. These applications seek licensure of BetMGM as the operator of racebooks and sports pools at the 9 casinos operated by MGM in Las Vegas. If approved, the plan would be for BetMGM to take over operation of the hub at Mandalay Bay and run all of the other racebooks and sports pools as satellites of that location. However, with 9 operations, 9 sports books, multiple companies involved, potential new systems, this is a complicated transition requiring immense planning and coordination. Therefore, any transition would be scheduled to occur at a slower time of the year with regard to race and sports wagering, likely after March Madness and the opening of the Major League Baseball season, and before football starts again in late summer, early fall. It's possible we may need to postpone the transition even further and may need to seek a waiver of Regulation 4080 to get us past the next football season. So I wanted to make sure we were transparent about that up front. The key employee license granted in December, however, gives us the opportunity to avoid the misunderstandings and concerns that have previously arisen with regard to BetMGM's role in MGM's race and sports operations while we wait to make that transition. MGM and BetMGM are working with the audit division on the internal controls that will govern BetMGM's role in the operations. We've reviewed the board's suggested conditions and have no concerns with any of them. In addition to the licensing of BetMGM as the operator of the sports books, there are applications from MGMRI and Entain for amendments to their orders of registration to reflect the licensing of BetMGM. Mr. McGinnis and Ms. Okerberg will address those applications. And I'll turn it over to them to.
Again, Sean McGinnis for the record. The draft order registration prepared for MGM Resorts International, draft number 1 dated January 10, 2025 is in proper form for execution if approved, because it does what Mr. Shearer referenced, just in taking these approvals and putting it into the MGM order.
Again, Erica Okerberg for the record. On behalf of Entain, we've reviewed draft number 1 of the 7th revised order of registration. It's dated January 10th. We believe it is in proper form and we have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, Chair Tagliati, we'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Krolicki, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to the commission, and thank you to Boulder City for hosting us today. Mr. Scherer, good morning to you again.
Good morning.
You really just touched upon it, but just watching the Gaming Control Board meeting and reviewing the notes, this transition from Reno to Mandalay Bay really is quite the exercise. You just called it immense planning and coordination. Could you talk maybe a little bit more about what is really encompassed by this, physical transition, from downtown Reno to Mandalay Bay? And you already suggested potentially needing to extend 4080, but could you just talk about what's entailed in this, just so I have a better handle on what all needs to be accomplished?
Certainly, and fortunately, I have many BetMGM representatives either by Zoom or here in the room who can correct me if I miss anything. But there are a number of employees. For example, all the ticket writers at the MGM race books and sports pools right now are MGM employees. So there'll be transitions of employees to becoming, under one of the conditions, to BetMGM employees. They'll have to be trained in BetMGM policies, have to be transitioned over. There will be changes to some extent in the systems. There is coordination that needs to happen between MGM and BetMGM with regard to player rewards, for example, and how those will apply and can be used, because you'll have two different licensees. You'll have BetMGM as the licensee in the racebook and sports pool, and MGM is the licensee for the casino itself. So there's just a lot of coordination. How will comps work? And some of those things have been addressed previously in existing agreements, but this will be a new application of those, and how specifically will that apply? So I think the biggest is going to be the systems and how to integrate the systems and be able to make it a seamless experience for the customer.
That is going to be quite the task. I believe in the Gaming Control Board, the internal control systems at BetMGM have been submitted, I think, very recently to the Gaming Control Board. Do we know how long that takes for those written systems to really be approved and provide comfort to Gaming Control Board?
And typically, the audit division takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to review, and depends on how many changes there are and if they have any concerns with them. And there are two sets of internal controls here. One set is for BetMGM to act as the key employee, so putting them into MGM's internal controls as the key employee for these operations in the interim. And then there's a separate set of internal controls for BetMGM to act as the operator. That set of internal controls, I've had discussions with Supervisor Newell and Bat, Andrew Bat, in the audit division. And we've discussed the fact that because this transition will be somewhat delayed, we will submit updated, a fresh version of the internal controls for that MGM at least 30 days in advance of when we intend the transition to take place, and give them time to review and approve those internal controls. And that's one of the conditions as
The
well.
first
that
condition,
Board
I believe.
recommended, yes. Yeah, so that will occur later. We submitted internal controls, but they said, things might change between now and the transition. So give us a fresh set of internal controls at least 30 days ahead of the transition, and we'll get it reviewed.
And that all makes great sense. One of the other conversations that was important and was at length at the Gaming Control Board was accountability. And again, I think Chair Hendrick referred to this as it's a baby, the MGM baby, all the different pieces coming together. And I thought that was a fun term. But just, as things evolve, the accountability, if, and again, he used the term bat phone, if something's going on, it's clear between, the Entain piece, BetMGM and MGM, how that line of communication and the triaging of that phone call, if you will, if something's going on, you're comfortable that those issues have been addressed or will be imminently?
Yes, I think it's going to be important for us to sit down and have BetMGM executives sit down with different division chiefs and different staff of the board to make sure that developed a relationship where there's some comfort in picking up the phone and calling when they need information. BetMGM today has 115 employees in Nevada. And that's before the transition I talked about of additional employees. They have several key executives right here in Southern Nevada who are located here full time. So I think there's this perception that MGM is, either across the country or across the ocean, but they're not. They have a lot of key people right here, and one of them will be on your agenda next month for licensing as a key executive. I think we just need to do a better job of making sure we introduce those folks to the key staff at the Gaming Control Board, make sure that relationship is built, and the board feels as though they know who they can call with any particular questions they have, and that they will get an answer promptly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are wonderful answers to my questions. I appreciate your time today. That's all for the moment, Madam Chair.
Before we leave the topic of employees, how many, and I'm sorry, I don't recall seeing it in the materials. It could be there was a lot of information presented, but how many ticket writers we're talking about?
I don't know.
And how does this affect their, seniority and benefits and package, of salary or hourly wage? Is it going to stay the same?
I know the concept is for it to stay the same, but again, working that out and exactly how that will work in the transition, that's one of the issues that needs to be addressed.
So we don't know how many ticket writers?
I do not. There's nine retail sports books, so.
Okay, I was just curious. Maybe you could let us know?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But we were on that topic of employees, so I didn't want to lose that train of thought. I will now ask Commissioner Solis Rainey, do you have any questions, comments?
I do. Thank you. And thank you for asking that question. That was one of my questions as far as how the transition was going to affect the employees' as personal benefits. And also just physically, will they still have access to the ADRs? Are those parking, are those issues being considered as part of the contract?
Parking, yes. What was the first?
EDRs.
EDRs. I believe so. Yeah, like I said, I know that's one of the things they're trying to work out. The idea would be that it would be a seamless transition for the employees as well. Although they will have they'll get a paycheck from a different company.
Right.
And so making that fit within, the current benefit structure at BetMGM, as opposed to the benefit structure at MGM, they would have a different computer system, a different, login, those kinds of things. So trying to make all those things work out. But in terms of their pay and benefits, the idea is to try to make it as smooth and seamless a transition as possible with essentially the same pay and benefits across the board.
Okay.
Perfect. As far as the property in Reno, is MGM going to continue to, or BetMGM going to continue to service that property via a hub there, or are they going to do that from the Mandalay?
They would do that from Mandalay Bay once the transition takes
So the
place.
hub will be removed completely from the Reno property.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it just
And-
makes more sense. There's more staff at Mandalay Bay to be able to handle those issues.
And who's going to have the audit and compliance responsibility for the sports book as far as internal audits that are required and
Yeah.
such?
After the transition, it would be BetMGM. They have their own internal audit department, and their internal audit department would be responsible for those internal audits. Before the transition, it's still MGM as the licensee, and that's one of the benefits of the key employee relationship is there actually provides some greater independence in terms of BetMGM having a key role in managing, but MGM being responsible for the internal audits and being very independent of that management.
Tell me a little bit about BetMGM's internal audit function. Where is it located? How many employees do they have and such?
Let me see if either Mr. Weissman or Ms. Martin can address that. Or if we have,
Hi. For the record, Josh Wiseman, Director of Licensing from BetMGM. I don't have the exact number of the individuals in the audit department. I can get back to you with that. Most of them are located in or around the New Jersey area, though.
Okay. Do you expect that to continue once you transition to be the operator?
Yes, that's the expectation, yeah.
Okay. How about compliance personnel?
Compliance
I
personnel,
know-
we have compliance personnel spread out all across the states. The department in total is close to 90 individuals.
Okay.
And we expect that to stay the same. So there'll be individuals located in Nevada as well as New Jersey and other jurisdictions as well.
Okay. And I understood that one of your, the persons present was based in Nevada.
Correct.
How many of those compliance personnel are located in Nevada?
I can get you that number. I have it back on my laptop. I can
She's
grab that quick.
standing up. I don't know if she has an answer for you.
Oh.
Morning.
Good morning.
Wendy Martin, Director of Compliance, Anti-Money Laundering and Fraud. I am one of the individuals that is located in Las Vegas, and I have 4 anti-money laundering employees and Title 31 employees that also report to me and resided in Las Vegas.
What's your relationship with audit? I'm assuming they don't report to you or.
Oh, internal
or
audit?
vice versa.
No.
Okay.
I'm audited by internal audit, but yes.
I was hoping that was the answer. Thank you so much. I don't have any other questions. Thank you both for answering the ones that I have.
thank you.
Commissioners Marcantonis or Silver?
Excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. I thought it was very thorough in front of the Gaming Control Board. However, I do have a question with regard to the changes in the controls, the documentation in the controls, and also the condition involving the surveillance systems as to how these will all be in place, or will they be in place for the March Madness month, which we all know is a very big sports gaming month after the NFL.
Right.
And I'm sure this has been thought through already, but I wonder if you could give us any background or any thoughts regarding that.
Yes, so MGM obviously has surveillance in place for all of the books currently. As I said, the transition would not occur till after March Madness. But if you're looking at March Madness of next year, the plan would be for MGM to continue to provide surveillance. So there'd be a contract essentially between BetMGM and MGM that sets forth how that surveillance is done. Security would be BetMGM in the book with assistance, and there'd be cooperation between BetMGM and MGM. Surveillance would be continue to be done by MGM surveillance operators, and they've got the cameras, they've got the systems there at the property, so there would be a cooperative agreement between them as to how. And so that's part of the internal controls, is and part of the procedures that need to be put in place is what happens when something happens in the book, who do they call, those kinds of things. But it would essentially stay the same as it is now. That's surveillance.
And we're satisfied that any really significant changes will be in place before the Madness tournament starts?
Correct. Yes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Silver?
Scott. Oh, I'm sorry, I was able to get the numbers for both our internal audit staff. For the record, my name is Sarah Brennan, Senior Director of Compliance for BetMGM. We have 11 members with one open role on our internal audit team. And for the MGM ticket writer staff, there are 70 full-time employees and 30 part-time.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Silver, sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear it?
I can.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't tell if it was on. Yeah, I just really had a question, which was pretty much answered with Commissioner Krolicki, in that all of our materials said that this would be up and going after or March Madness, and then we hear in the board that it could be extended even into or past the football NFL season. So my question was really like, why? But it was pretty much answered with Commissioner Krolicki. So I think you were all peppered really well by the board regarding the auditing, and I'm satisfied as far as the approvals of these orders with the conditions set forth of those 6 conditions to the 9 different properties.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, if none of my fellow commissioners have any additional questions or comments, it appears this matter is in proper form for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to make a motion for approval of non-restricted item number 1 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Game Control Board. And with respect to MGM, that would be pursuant to the 61st revised order registration, draft 1 dated January 10th, 2025. And with respect to Entain, that would be draft 1 of the 7th order of registration dated January 10th, 2025.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, if you could please read in non-restricted number 2.
Non-restricted number 2 are the applications of Brian Chang and Sylvia Tiscarino for finding of suitability and or licensure as an officer as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval, and I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Madam Chair, I'd like to incorporate by reference my disclosure on Mr. Scherer I made in item number 1.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning again. For the record, Scott Scherer of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, appearing today on behalf of GAN Limited. With me today are Sylvia Tiscarino and Brian Chang. And I would like to ask them to come forward and give you a brief overview of their backgrounds. And they may abbreviate it from the board meeting as well.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Honorable Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, my name is Sylvia Tiscarino, Corporate Legal Officer, Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary at GAN. I had previously thanked the board for their recommendation of approval and hope to count with your approval this morning. A little bit about myself, as Mr. Scherer noted, I'll be abbreviating my original presentation and happy to answer any questions you may have after. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and as a result, I've had the privilege of watching the evolution of the hospitality and gaming industry in Southern Nevada over the last few decades. I was originally introduced to the industry by my parents. They emigrated from Mexico to the Las Vegas Valley to raise their family. My father was a career bartender on the Las Vegas Strip. My mother, a career cocktail waitress on the Las Vegas Strip. My first job was at the Circus as a midway attendant. In fact, that was, for all my siblings, that was our first job, ironically. And during my undergraduate studies at UNLV, I worked at what was at the time the largest hotel and casino in the world, the MGM Grand, which is where I was exposed to the hotel side of the industry. I eventually left Nevada to attend law school, but came back after being barred in New York. I'm barred in Nevada, and started my legal career in the litigation department of a private firm, and eventually made my way in-house.
I've spent the majority of my professional career in the gaming industry as in-house counsel. First starting with Aristocrat Technologies, then I moved on to the US operations for William Hill, and now at GAN. And I've had the privilege of working on many complex matters over the years in foreign and domestic markets for both private and public companies. When I'm not working, I enjoy giving back to my community, especially when I can do so with my son. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, and thank you for being here in Boulder City with us in person. It's very always nice to meet the applicants and face to face. And so
My pleasure.
we appreciate it. I'm going to start on this side at this time, and ask Commissioner Marcantonis. He has any questions, comments?
I have no questions, of course, but I reiterate what I'm sure all of my fellow commissioners and others are thinking. What an amazing story you have, Ms. Carreño.
Thank you.
I'm sure you have it in your DNA. It's just listening to your parents involved in the hospitality industry, pretty much just doing everything. And they must have been and must be extremely proud, your entire family, about the fact that you have progressed so amazingly well. And even I'm sure you never dreamt as a midway attendant, you probably didn't even know what a Nevada Gaming Commission was. And now you're standing in front of us for licensing. I will have no hesitation in supporting you today.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's a pleasure to have you in front of us. I did see the street where you lived. I want to tell you that I actually grew up next door on Rosemary Lane.
Oh, really?
So you can't even get to where you live without
Okay.
going on Rosemary Lane.
Yes.
And in fact, yeah, my dad still lives there and I go there every Sunday. So maybe I'll
Okay.
see you out walking or
Yes.
something right there in that
I
development.
probably passed by your
Very
house.
historical and coincidental that we bought it from one of the owners of Circus Circus. So
Mm,
it's such a small world if you grew up in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And I just thought I'd relay that because I saw the street. But I mean, you have an incredible resume. I love your story and how you worked your way up. I didn't know what you did at the MGM though before you went to law school. I was curious on that. What did you do at MGM?
So on the hotel ops side, I started in the reservations department and then moved into the front desk area. And then ultimately worked what they called at the time, they don't have it anymore, or they don't call it this anymore, the Grand Class Service Center, which is where we helped night audit. We did the room checks. We supported casino services as needed. We took all the guest complaints. And then obviously had the training at the front desk, so supported them when they were either short-staffed or we had 3,000 check-ins that day.
Mhm. Well, I see that you've been granted licensing in other jurisdictions as well. This is your first license here in Nevada.
Yes.
And so I fully support your application and want to congratulate you on a beautiful resume.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Ms. Tiscareño, welcome. And wanted to echo the comments of my colleagues. And I personally always appreciate having people go away to school but come back. I think it's great that you're, back in the community that raised you. Your son is 17, so you're getting ready to be an empty nester?
Yes, he's actually 18. So
Oh, is he
he's
18
a
now? Okay.
November baby. And yes, we are waiting on, has some admissions now, waiting on some more. And
So he'll be leaving in the fall first?
yes,
Okay. Well, good luck to you.
thank you.
It's a tough time.
I don't want to cry, so I don't want to talk about that.
It's a tough time for a parent.
I'm 5 months in and it's the worst.
Okay, thank you for that encouragement. I
Sorry.
appreciate it.
Empty nest, worst.
I'm on the other side of it, so you do
Okay.
get past it.
Thank you.
And it does get better, but you're never ready to still have them being on all the time.
Yes.
So good luck with that.
Thank you.
I didn't have any questions about your background. It's very clean. I was interested to hear about your experiences at MGM. I did the same through college, and it was great because you could work. I worked full-time, went to college full-time in reservations and front desk
Yes.
and night audit and all of that. So it gives you a great experience
It
and
does.
appreciation for the back of the house. But with that said, I don't have any issues supporting your application, and I'm just happy you're here.
Thank you. I
you.
appreciate that.
Commissioner Krolik?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning and
Good
welcome.
morning.
it can't be repeated too often. I just love the fact that you are literally a product of, you know, Las Vegas and the gaming world here. And it's wonderful to see how you've thrived, you know, in your whole life, except for this thing in Ohio for law school. You've been here. So I just, you know, that's a great part of your story. You talked about it at some length with the Gaming Control Board, but could you just remind me, please, about how the compliance and audit staff folks report to you?
Sure. So we have two, we sort of draw a line in our business from the B2C and the B2B. The B2B folks are dealing with that part of the business. And I have a team that's, you know, legal and compliance. We're remote workers. So I do have folks from different states that report into me. We do have two of the compliance folks here in town. And then we have our VP of compliance out of New Jersey. And then we have the B2C side. So because they do the actual operations directly with the end users, then that's where we have the AML function. And so the interim head of legal, because our original head of legal is out on maternity leave. So we have an interim right now, but she reports into me. And so we meet on a weekly basis to discuss any of the issues that may arise or anything that need to be addressed.
Good. You know, in careers and as people pursue them, timing is everything. But I enjoyed your comment about you were in sports betting before it was cool.
This is true.
38 states later,
yes,
you're in the middle. So good on you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I fully and enthusiastically support your application today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Chair Tagliati, Honorable Commissioners, Madam Secretary. My name is Brian Chang, Chief Financial Officer for GAM. I also abbreviate my presentation slightly. I am a local of Southern California and went to UCI for undergrad, UC Irvine. I went to USC for graduate school and started my professional career at Deloitte in 2005 and had the specialty of not having an industry specialty, which allowed me to be parachuted into any situation to help out whatever teams needed help with. I left Deloitte after almost 8 years after I realized I didn't have aspirations to become a partner at the firm and landed at a medical device manufacturer in Irvine, who was publicly traded at Edwards Life Sciences. I had a great time there, but realized that the pace and the role for me wasn't the best fit and got everything I asked for at Alorica and went to a company that quadrupled in size in 18 months through 2 acquisitions. So I had the opportunity to work on transformative mergers and optimization projects. And I also, towards the end of my tenure there, got to work on the other side of the coin, dealing with debt restructuring and quality of earnings projects, all of which were very coincidentally similar to the situations that we've experienced at GAN. So I joined GAN a little over 3 years ago and took over the financial reporting function initially to clean up the SEC reporting. We had to issue 3 10-Qs and a 10-K all in a 6-month sprint, but got everything cleaned up. And later that year, ended up assuming the responsibilities of CFO for GAN. I admittedly was not an expert in financial planning and analysis, investor relations, but I have very strong team members that support me. I've held on to all my controllership responsibilities due to the circumstances of the company. And on a personal note, I have 2 children, 7 and 5. Not quite at the stage where Sylvia is at, but definitely trying to enjoy all the time I have with them at this age. I'm very proud of my wife, who runs a small business helping children with their handwriting. And we have 2 dogs that keep our house very lively. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for being here today in person. We greatly appreciate it. And good on your wife for working with special needs kids and handwriting camps. And that's certainly a laudable work and challenging, I'm sure. At this time, I would ask my colleagues here to my right if Commissioner Krolicki or Solis Rainey have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chang, good morning. I'm going to channel my state treasurer hat. It's never too early to start saving for that day that you're an empty nester and sending kids off to school. So if it's not Nevada Millennium Scholarship, 529 programs. Nevada's got a great one. Sign up and, it's a good deal.
Will do, sir.
If you've not already done it, you are the financial guy. You have been very busy. You stepped into quite the storm and watching all of this. I've been involved in needing to refile Qs in the K. Who was your outside auditor when you were doing this? Because that's quite the dance that needs to be done.
Grant Thornton, and they've been very supportive, and we have a very great relationship with them. They are still our auditors.
That's good. That was the next, they're still your auditor.
That is correct.
Then you've executed that well. How was the other busiest man in the world, Seamus McGill?
It's very busy, and I think we're both just trying to manage through to the point of the merger being completed. That's the primary goal right now, in addition to obviously maintaining compliance with the SEC and all of our filing requirements, while trying to make sure we steer the business as well as we can up to the point of the merger.
You may not be able to answer this, and that's fine, but more curiosity. So after the merger is completed, what is the status? Or you go dark, you delist, or you're...
Yes, we would be delisted. All of the shares that are out in the open market would be acquired by Segasami Creation Japan, and all the shareholders would get the equivalent of $1.97 per share.
And that pricing has been negotiated. It's
correct.
It's done. I think we asked you that last time, and it was fluid. Good job. And Madam Chair has already asked, but I don't think I've ever seen anywhere in my life something to do with a handwriting camp. And it's you're the one here for licensing, but I get to ask you about your wife. I think it was a baby born of COVID and all of that, but oh my goodness, especially with electronic and keyboards, cursive and print, it is a lost skill. So how the heck is it a business?
So there's actually, and I'm going to be a little out on my depth here, but I absorb enough of it through having nighttime chats with my wife. But the handwriting is actually, it's the hand muscles in your hands that are actually important. So she's an occupational therapist by trade. So what she sees is that as kids move away from handwriting, the hand muscles that all of us in the room here likely developed through our penmanship skills that we had to do during school are actually disappearing. And so there's a push to make sure that you exercise your hands the right way. And yeah, in addition to that, she's an ABA certified professional. So she has behavioral skills that she helps, quite frankly, sometimes the parents deploy more so than the children. So this is all within the scope of her small business, helping the families really manage through whatever they need help with.
Never thought about it, but that makes sense to me. I mean, I just see the hand coordination now on games and things, and that frustrates me, and I'm sure many other parents, but it's also a great way to keep young ones amused. But I appreciate that answer. Good on you and your wife. I'm sure that's all I have at the moment. But Mr. Chang, thank you, and I fully support your application today. You've earned the stripes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Thank you, Mr. Tank, for being here. You're not from Nevada, but we're happy you're here with us at least today. How often do you get to Las Vegas or Nevada?
Honestly, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So this year obviously has been a little bit more, but usually 3 to 4 times.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was also curious about your wife's business. I work with some college women, and they're at that age where some of them cannot read cursive because they didn't have to learn it.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised by that. So I was curious if teaching cursive was part of her curriculum.
It is upon request of the parents.
Okay.
And again, I'm a little out of my depth here, but I think at least in California, in the school district we were in, they actually pulled cursive entirely, but then reinstituted it because I think Governor Newsom said that it was important for kids to be able to read the Constitution, which is in cursive. So I think that and a lot of other things contributed to them reinstating it. But there's actually this window of, I think they're currently 4th to 6th grade that they've never learned cursive, so they don't even know how to read it. So when the parents request it, she's able to teach it, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And that's what some of these young women said is they had pulled it from their school. My kids had attended Catholic school, so they've always had to use it, and they can actually sign their name in cursive. So I was a little surprised how many it's the freshman class that's coming in, they sign kind of printed. so it's a little unusual. I was curious as far as your job at Edward Life Sciences, what was their device?
So they made heart valves
Okay.
that are all actually, when I say manufactured, they actually hand sew every valve. So they don't sell very well. Now they're actually much bigger than when I was there. But at the time, I mean, you're talking less than 1,000 heart valves going out in any quarter. So it
wow.
wasn't some gigantic thing, but obviously a lot of care went into that manufacturing process, which was very much manual hand sewing.
I had made a note to look it up. I had worked with several of the medical device manufacturers, and that's one that I wasn't sure what they did. So I was curious about that. I didn't have any questions or concerns about your background, so I'm happy to support your application. But again, I do appreciate you being here with us.
Of course, thank you.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you. Again, thank you for being here. Your background is very impressive, and I really appreciate what you've done to clean up and what you've done with the SEC with at GAN. So I'm again impressed with your wife too and your kids. So I'm happy to support your application.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marcantonis?
I echo Commissioner Silva's comments. I noticed you, and I hope you have not been intimidated being surrounded by so many empty nesters. And it sounds like and I will certainly be supporting your application, that we may be actually granting the application for you and your wife. But congratulations on your background, and very happy to support you, Mr. Chan.
Thank you very much.
All right. We do really appreciate you being here, and I don't think anybody has any additional questions or comments. So at this time, it appears we're in proper form for a motion for these two applicants.
Madam Chair, I move for approval. Non-restricted item number 2, as read into the record as Madam Secretary, Ms. Nicole Rupert, and as recommended by Nevada's Gaming Control Board. Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And there are none opposed. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 3?
Non-restricted number 3 is the application of Christopher Joy for licensure as a key employee at Coast Hotels and Casinos, Inc., doing business as Orleans Hotel and Casino. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. Good morning again, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, I am Erica Okerberg, appearing today on behalf of the company. Here with me is the applicant, Chris Joy. He provided an overview of his background at the board meeting, so we're just going to do a quick abbreviated presentation if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning. For the record, Chris Joy, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, and Madam Secretary, good morning. As I mentioned briefly at the board meeting, I've been working in the Nevada gaming industry for the last 30 years. I started in 1995 at the Silver Legacy in Reno as an assistant front office manager and moved up from there. I joined Boyd Gaming in 2019. I currently serve as the vice president and general manager at the Orleans. In my capacity as GM, I oversee all departments within the property, and I report to Steve Schutte, the executive vice president of operations for Boyd Gaming. I do supervise approximately 16 directors and managers. And with that, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and ask Commissioner Marcantonis, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not have anything further than what we talked about at the Nevada's Gaming Control Board, Mr. Joy. Will be fully supportive of your application today.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you. Again, thank you for coming here today. I see that with all of your gaming experience, it's hard to believe this is the first time that you've been in front of the commission for a license. So congratulations to you, because you have such an extensive background in gaming. And I couldn't help but, I haven't seen Aladdin Hotel on anybody's resume in a long time, and I graduated in the Aladdin Hotel high school.
That's great.
So I love that. So I'm really happy to support your application.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Thank you, Mr. Joy, for being here. How's the property doing?
We're doing well. We actually are about ready to embark upon a hotel remodel. It's very extensive.
Okay.
And some more good things to come soon.
What's your target demographic?
We're a mix of both local and out-of-town business with our proximity to the Strip. So we do see local customers, they tend to skew a bit older. And local customers, all age, non-local, out of town, all age ranges. So whatever the Strip would get, we get a good portion of those customers as
So
well.
similar in the local side to Sam's Town?
Sam's and really Durango, Red Rock, we share those communities. So pretty wide age range, but they do tend to skew a little bit older folks.
Right. All right. Well, I didn't have any questions about your background or experience. I mean, you have great and extensive experience at various property. I also graduated at the Aladdin, so I think we're just at that age.
I love that.
We have
graduated.
photos and it's so sad because it's just not there anymore, but it was a fun place. So thank you so much for being here and good
Thank you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Krolicki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Joy, pleasure to see you this morning. We've met before.
Yes.
I think you remember that, and so you know what I'm going to talk about today. At the risk of my colleagues rolling their eyes, this is a great opportunity to speak about curling.
Curling, yes. Curling is a great piece of business for our arena.
Say that again.
Curling is a great piece of
There you
business
go.
for our arena. And we do enjoy hosting that as it comes through. As the groups in Canada begin to reconstitute, certainly we're open to additional, working with them additionally. So great piece of business.
I know we tease, but the curling in your ice is, department and capability, and Mr. Seidenberg, I believe, is the arena operator.
Yes.
But I think, as someone who lives in the north, and I know you went to Reed High School, I'm a northern guy too, originally. When I come to Las Vegas and Clark County and Boulder City, I need to find a place to stay. I've probably spent more nights in the Orleans than any other hotel in Southern Nevada. And just because of the curling, because we have hosted, multiple men's world championships of the
Yes.
World Curling Federation. We've hosted multiple Continental Cup activities, which is like, you've heard me speak about this, but like the Ryder Cup of curling is, Team North America versus the world. We've hosted that multiple times.
Yes.
So, we've probably put tens of thousands of room nights onto not only the Orleans, but other Boyd properties because of this. I know this isn't gaming, but it's under your purview, so I get to ask you these questions. We also have the recent Icebreaker hockey tournament. And I know you worked with one of my colleagues, Mr. Kelleran.
Yes.
At length, there's always an issue. People think ice is easy. It's not. And when you're a curler in hockey, those ice surfaces need to be very different, and you all have the expertise. But, it's an exciting time to be, in your space with the demographic that you had and the facilities that you have. That arena, it's not the, Allegiant Stadium, it's not T-Mobile, but it fits, I think it's 8,000 people, something like that. It's just a much more intimate venue that is appropriate for many things that aren't professional hockey or football games, NFL and things like that. But I know Mr. Hill has talked about it. I don't even know if there's a question here, so just indulge me as I keep going. But Mr. Hill with the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the opportunities that we have in Las Vegas for the Olympics that will be coming into LA in 28 and Salt Lake City winter, 32. If that's, 34, whenever the IOC decides that we're going to do those things, people need to understand that Las Vegas is going to be a massive host to people overnighting. The Olympiads are 2 weeks long, but they'll stay here and go visit a couple of events. But bringing in world-class and elite competitions that fit in your arena, I hope are an important part of, the arena operations and putting heads in beds and, people participating in the fun things at night, which I've watched them do on the casino floor. But, it's a big role. People, again, for the most part, wouldn't understand that, wouldn't even think about it, but I do. But I just appreciate the role that, Tony Toible, who is one of my heroes, who you, learned next to for many years, but the abilities to help Las Vegas. And as we pursue, sport tourism, if you will, you were doing it before these other incredible venues were built. And I just hope that continues to be a focus and fun. And I appreciate the work that you do with the Nevada Sports USA and the Reno Tahoe Winter Games Coalition and the World Curling Federation and, the college hockey folks. It's been exquisite. There are always pickles and headaches, but, everything I've heard and watched, you've been a marvelous presence and a voice of reason and calm and often a storm. So with that massive digression, I really have no questions. You are, eminently qualified. You've been doing this for a long, long time. You're good at what you do. I am surprised that this is your first time actually needing to, have your tires kicked before the Gaming Commission, but I enthusiastically and welcome support of your application today.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank Curly
Go
for
Curly.
supporting the arena. My son's graduated at the Orleans, so it's nice that you're able to host those types of events
Excellent.
as well.
Thank you. We're very proud of
Thanks
you.
to Curly,
Thank you.
for sure.
Well, thank you for being here again. I don't have any additional questions. I would simply comment that you're eminently qualified. You have a very clean background, and I'm pleased to support your application.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion from one of my colleagues.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 3 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate you.
Good Curly.
Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 4.
Non-restricted number 4 is the application of Ryan Paulos for licensure as a key employee at Coast Hotels and Casinos, Inc., doing business as Gold Coast Hotel and Casino. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary, again for the record, I am Erica Okerberg, appearing on behalf of the company. Here with me today is the applicant, Mr. Paulos. He provided a detailed overview of his background at the board meeting, so he will provide an abbreviated version for you today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Honorable Commissioners, Madam Secretary. My name is Ryan Paulus. I've been working in the Nevada gaming industry for the past 27 years. I started with a management training program at the Nevada Palace in the early 90s, and I've worked my way through the industry to my position today. I've been with Boyd since 2016 when they acquired Cannery Casino Resorts and retained me as Vice President and General Manager of the Cannery Casino. In 2022, I was assigned to the Gold Coast Casino as Vice President and General Manager. In my capacity as GM, I oversee all departments within the property. I report to Steve Schutte, the Executive Vice President of Operations for Boyd Gaming, and I supervise approximately 13 directors and managers. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for being here today in Boulder City with us. At this time, I will ask my colleagues, Commissioner Marcantonis, to start. If you have any questions or comments.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Paulus. We obviously enjoyed listening to your conversations, the Gaming Control Board, and you have an amazing DNA in our industry and through your family, of course. And Mr. Schutte also has had quite a few, 1 or 2 representatives for that for your organization here today in front of us. So I have no hesitation supporting you. That's a great background. You've seen the city from when it was nothing near what it is today. And it's really good to see somebody who's come through the cannery background.
Thank you.
And through the family ties through that.
Yes.
To be in front of us today and running such impressive properties as you all are running today.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Chair.
that.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you. Yes, like everybody, it seems like here today we're just getting the best of the best. Really impressive background, 36 years, and the cannery, yay for all the concerts that they have. I have to say, I've been there to plenty of the concerts there. They're great. And of course, now you're over at Gold Coast, which has like the best Chinese food probably in town. So, you report to Steve Schutte and 12 direct reports. I have absolutely no concerns at all, and just want to thank you for coming here again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Mr. Paulus, thank you for being here. I didn't have any additional questions. All my questions were answered from the materials and from the questioning that was done at the board meeting and here with my colleagues. So, but I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati. No questions on curling, I promise. It is a pleasure to meet you. We've talked about it already, but a product of folks, in the gaming industry and second and third generation folks doing these things. It's just pleasing. It's important. It's Nevada. It's the essence of what we are. And, you're standing in front of us today. So again, thank you and congratulations. And I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting your father, but I hope to have that someday. I know the Orleans is about to renovate 1,200 rooms and lots of capital construction programs. In front of the Gaming Control Board, you talked about some of the recent, improvements and properties. I didn't hear a dollar value though, but could you talk a little bit about the capital improvement program, on the property and maybe even Boyd in general?
Yeah, so last year we completed a hotel renovation that was about $16 million in scope. This year we plan on adding a couple new eating facilities and should be a good significant capital infusion there as well.
Okay. Well, that'll make member Assad happy having new restaurants. Again, I don't want to go into detail. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you've had issues. You've used your body kickboxing, and I think that's what I heard and other things.
Yes, sir.
And it's crippling. Some of the damage and legacy of some of your physical activities. But can you talk about some of your pain management? And again, I don't want to get into personal things, but again, how you are able to work, your body needs to be supportive of those things, but I think you've overcome it. It's a great story. So maybe this is a chance for you to, take credit where it's due.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Had some physical abuse to my body over the years, but
you said too, I think there was something else you did that
I used to work in the King Arthur's tournament at the Excalibur and
oh my goodness,
jousted off of horses.
You got to jump off of horses.
Yes.
On purpose. I won't use that against you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so a couple years ago, I had a procedure done on my back that alleviated some pressure off some nerves. Twice a week, I have sessions that's called active release therapy, soft tissue work, cold plunge, sauna, a lot of stretching. Stretching, for anybody that has pain, stretching is absolutely the key to lower back pain and neck pain. So I strongly endorse stretching.
Good. Well, again, I don't ask you to, be too personal, but, I think it's a great accomplishment what you've been able to do and, putting things in certain places and kudos.
Thank you.
Well done. Jumping off horses. How many would you have to do that several times in one show?
It would be jumping off a horse twice a night, once per show, and then some sword fighting and other things.
I think I watched
you
once upon a time and who are these crazy people now?
That was a very long time ago.
On your tax return, what do you say your job is?
Back then
Jumping
it
off
was
horses?
entertainer, I think.
No, again, your DNA and life experience eminently qualifies you for what you're in front of us for today. And we're just proud to have people like you in the industry who can smile, who have the vision, who have the temperament, who can maintain a quality control in the Las Vegas part of this gaming empire that we've built in the state. And I absolutely support your application today.
Thank you very much.
I don't have any additional questions or comments. I support your application and believe that if one of my colleagues is ready, we can make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval, non-restricted item number 4, as read into the record by Madam Secretary, Ms. Nicole Rupert, and as recommended by Nevada's Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And there are none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You make me, I'm gonna have to go get this. Curling thing.
All right, Madam Secretary, if you could please read in non-restricted number 6 as number 5 was removed from the agenda prior to the board meeting.
Non-restricted number 6 are the applications of Scott Butera for finding of suitability as an officer and key employee and for licensure as a manager as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. Sonia Vermees from the law firm Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, here on behalf of the applicant. To my left, Scott Butera. He is a seasoned veteran in the gaming industry with a background in investment banking before he got into gaming and has been with several casinos. He's been licensed. He's with Affinity Interactive, and I'm happy to have you speak with him and ask him any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Madam Chair, members of the commission, Madam Secretary, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm Scott Butera. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and President of Affinity Interactive. Affinity has 2 assets, here in Nevada, 1 Prim Resorts and 1 Silver Sevens. We also own 3 assets in the Midwest. As mentioned, I've been in the business for about 30 years. Started as an investment banker, actually worked on the financing of the Aladdin. That's how old I am, I guess. Realized I love the business. In 2001, got involved in turning around a few businesses. Started my career as an operator at Trump Entertainment, moved on to Tropicana. I also served time at Foxwoods, made my way into media for a little bit at Fubo TV. I was the commissioner of the Arena Football League. And, when sports betting became legal, went to MGM to help set up what's now BetMGM, and now at Affinity. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here in Boulder City. We appreciate meeting you in person. And at this time, I will start on this side, Commissioner Solis Rainey. Do you have any questions or comments?
Mr. Butera, you have quite an impressive background, and I don't have any specific questions with respect to your background. It's you've done a lot of things and have a great reputation in the industry. So I'm just happy to have you here with me.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I equally share that amongst all of you. I don't think I've ever stood before a more accomplished commission or board in my career.
Thank you.
Secretary, you need to be in front of more commissions and boards.
Hopefully not.
It's a pleasure to have you here today. Just a couple questions, and again, I'm digressing a bunch today, but it's fun and it's important. But I think it's, the more we know about you, the better we grasp your task. I enjoyed your trading comments about Boston with Judge Assad earlier this month. My mom's family is from the North Shore, so Gloucester and Rockport are all places that were incredibly important to me. Singing Beach in Manchester is where my soul is happy and good. But I assume you know the North Shore far better than I.
Yeah, spent a lot of time there. My dad was a school principal and didn't take much to have a house on the water those days in a boat. So we used to travel to Wingasheek Beach and go clamming and just spent a lot of time up there on the water. So kind of grew up on the ocean, but it was fun. But Gloucester was a different town. It was kind of a more industrial fishing town back then. Now it's quite gentrified. So
yeah, but it's still the fishing center. And
it sure is, yeah. And
boats still go out every day.
Yeah, and the comments about the Red Sox worked because we subsequently signed Alex Bregman and brought in a few more players. So the team looks good now.
Well, until the season starts, they always make it to the All-Star game, and then all hell breaks loose.
That's a good point.
Breaks loose, for the record. I also appreciated your comments about the the Bonnie and Clyde car. I don't know who asked you that question, but
Mhm.
I've seen it, but it used to be at Whiskey Pete's, if I'm not mistaken, not at Buffalo Bills.
It's now at Buffalo Bills. We are in the process of doing a major repositioning at Prim. It's actually pretty exciting. You know, Prim is really a historic place. You know, for decades, it's been the gateway from Southern Californians here to Nevada, and we want to restore that. So we're doing quite a bit out there. We're repositioning our Prim Valley Hotel. We're adding a bunch of national brands. Our ownership group is involved in a number of restaurant concepts. We're also working with people like Mrs. Fields, et cetera, to, you know, bring in and improve our travel centers. We're going to be building a $4 million marquee sign there, which we think will not only show off our properties, but also be able to do advertising for other operators here in town. You know, we've probably invested $5 or $6 million in new slot product across our company. So it's going to be quite an exciting transformation.
And on the serious note, I was going to ask you about the capital improvement and projects, and you just mentioned you know, the money into slot.
Yeah.
But could you talk about, you know, what's going on now, or like are the outlet stores open now, or you know,
The outlet stores are actually owned by the Prim family. So we lease about 200 acres out there. We own about 15 acres. We lease the rest from the Prim family on a long-term lease. That mall is actually part of their operation. But I think similar to what we're you know, when Prim was first developed, it was really a destination resort area for Southern Californians, people from Los Angeles, Mojave area. Now they have their own casinos. They have quite large, nice casinos out there. But what we do have is about 50,000 cars a day that transpose there. So the idea is, how can we cater to that community and create experiences where people who've been on long drives can not only get gas to recharge their car, but also have, you know, something nice to eat, have a little bit of fun at a casino, and then move on. And then on weekends, we've been very successful at Buffalo Bills with the 6,000 seat arena, running acts, primarily Latin acts, which there seems to be a demand for. So between what we'll be doing to add to our travel centers, improve the Prim Valley Resort, add, you know, food, like I say, food and beverage concepts, national brands, and continue to focus on entertainment on the weekends, we think that'll be a good interim stop for Prim. And then longer term, you know, if the airport were ever developed, could you have housing out there? Could you have logistics centers? So the future is pretty interesting and bright, I think, for that property.
I mean, the Ivanpah Airport would be right next to you if that continues to be the name of it, but that's exciting.
Yeah.
We've talked about that for a long time, and certainly I'll call it McCarran Airport needs to have some relief if we continue this economic engine that we've all focused on and talked about today. You know, the Prim property, and I was actually interested to learn the acre footprint that you all have on you know, from the gaming perspective versus the family holdings, and thank you for that clarification. But it is such a unique, I mean, to be on a border. You know, I live in State Line, Nevada, but you know, up in the north side, and you know, that state line is a massive difference in how economies work. But especially if there's traffic and things like that, you're the first thing they see. Now they have a brand new sign that they'll be looking at, a couple $1 million billboard they can probably see for 20 miles. But
that's right.
You know, if you can take advantage of that, I mean, it is unique. And I think the food and beverage options that you're talking about, love Mrs. Fields cookies. You've got, I think, 3,200 slot machines. Is that what I heard you?
3,200 across our company. So we have about, in each of our various properties at Prim, we have about 600 each.
All right, and if I can ask maybe more personal questions, I guess that's what I'm doing today. Congratulations, you've been married for 32 years, but from a woman from New York.
Yes.
So you have a Boston, you know, you got the Red Sox Yankee thing going on, and you made it 32 years. How'd you do that?
She converted early.
There you go.
No, she's a wonderful woman. I'm quite blessed to have not only a great wife of 32 years, but 3 amazing children, all of which were primarily raised here in Nevada. And, you know, I think I mentioned it during the board, when I came from Connecticut to Nevada, it was almost considered a little bold move, right? Like, who lives in Las Vegas? You know, what's going to become of your children? And they all turned out amazingly well, got tremendous educations, are successful professionals. two of which are in Manhattan in successful professional jobs. And my youngest son is a junior in Providence College.
Excellent. You know, I saw your work history, but where were you an investment banker? I know you worked with the Trump folks, but
yeah, I was. So I started at Bear Stearns back with Ace Greenberg back when he ran the place back in the day. And then I was at Smith Barney for a long time, where that's really where I picked up real estate, which became lodging, which became gaming. And I would say the reason I got into gaming, they call it gaming, but it's really, think about it, 14 or so businesses under one roof. You have hotel, you have entertainment, you have food and beverage, retail, real estate development, et cetera. So, you know, kind of fell in love with it then, but ultimately ran lodging and gaming groups at Credit Suisse First Boston and then UBS.
You know, it's because I didn't see those names on here. So my first job out of college was Bankers Trust, went through the program, worked for Smith Barney. So I did I think the same thing, but my career didn't steer me into gaming, or at least not directly. It steered me to low compensation professions. So I chose poorly. You chose well.
Who ran Smith Barney when you were there?
Oh my goodness. It's when they went to Primerica and Jerry Sy and those folks.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I wish I had worked with a character like Hank Greenberg.
Yeah.
That's
I was there, and then Sandy Weil was running Citigroup at the time, which was Smith Barney when I was there.
Smith Barney was one of those companies you could sit in the same desk for a couple of years and have, you know, 5 different business cards because it just kept getting.
Exactly. Yeah, my wife actually worked at Smith Barney, ironically too, but we didn't. You know, we were on different floors. It could have been different worlds, but so
they're
a lot of Smith Barney in my background.
You know, one of the things that I get it, and there are always new opportunities, but you've had a history of moving, you know, after 2 years of I'm making that up, but you bounce. But this is a good home for you, what we're doing today,
And that's kind of the nature of the job when you're involved in restructuring companies. So, you know, primarily, when I was in banking, I really specialized in restructuring, and the companies I got involved in early in my career were with that specific purpose to sort of restructure, bring in new. So Trump Entertainment, we did a massive restructuring, took several years, consolidated the whole company, eliminated $3 billion in debt, and then we had new ownership, which was Morgan Stanley. New ownership usually comes in with their own management team. So it was never with the intention of leaving, but it was sort of circumstance that drove me that. But yeah, my goal is to be, I've known Mr. Zenny for a long time. He brought me in originally to help reposition. We also own the daily racing form, for those who didn't know, in addition to the casinos, to originally reposition that, which we have done successfully. And then when Affinity needed refurbishment, he asked me last April to take on that role. But I've known him for a long time. He's a great man, great organization, and my hope is to stay there quite a while.
Good. That's a great answer. And I do get why you move. I mean, that is in the nature of the beast, but you know, you've done that for decades. By the way, the racing book, it's something I know about, but I haven't really thought about who owned it and things. And now I am very learned on it. It's the core product. What do you say? 90% of the Las Vegas gaming industry uses that as their source.
Yeah, that's right. It's really the preeminent authority on thoroughbred horse racing. You know, we still print about 2 million copies and sell throughout racetracks, sports books, retail outlets. But really, our future is in e-commerce. So if you're familiar with like a Bloomberg machine, we're kind of a Bloomberg machine for those who handicap horse racing. And we're now into broadcasting, international broadcasting. We've started a Spanish channel, DRF Español, which is very successful. We're broadcasting internationally. So future's very bright for daily racing form as well. You know, hopefully a little resurgence in the industry with some of the big events, like obviously the Kentucky Derby, which is coming up in May, Breeders' Cup, the rest of the Triple Crowns. So for those who haven't been to a horse race, I highly encourage you to do it. It's like a scene out of The Great Gatsby, but it's something we're very proud of.
My wife loves hats, so it's a good thing. You know, and then going through your application, you know, there's a rhythm and a construction to the information, and you start from one end and you go, and you know, you often know what the conclusion's going to be or have an idea. You surprised me. The Bantam Special Opportunity Fund. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's an incredibly important part of your family's
Yeah.
resource as family. But could you just talk
Sure.
about that? And if it
Yeah,
takes time, I think there's an it's within another fund. It's operated. But
Yeah, that's really the investment vehicle that I hold a lot of my family's, I'll say wealth in, but so it's a limited liability corporation. When there was a period of my life when I was in between jobs, I was working with a partner of mine in a private equity shop called White Winston. I developed the vehicle at that time. It makes both private investments and invests in public securities, but it's really the entity to which I make all my investments through both private and public.
does that take much time from you?
No, zero. It's passive. It's managed by other people. All of the assets are managed by other people.
Well, as we started out, the investment banking conversation, you've chosen wisely throughout your career. I've challenged myself, but made decisions that didn't allow some of these things, but good on you. It's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I intend to fully support your application today.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Go Red Sox.
Commissioner Marcantonis.
Mr. Butera, nice to see you again. Our paths have crossed many years ago in our various career paths. Congratulations on your achievements. Amazing.
Thank you.
I do have, well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of the daily racing form. Not only that, I'm a subscriber. I have been for many years.
That's wonderful.
It is the Bloomberg magazine for people who care about thoroughbreds. Well done. You guys have done some great work there. The cars that come through Prim, since your presentation at the Gaming Control Board, I think at one point you mentioned whatever it was, 30 to 50,000 a day. I was wondering, because it's topical these days, I believe it's in the legislature and so on, discussions about perhaps one day bringing the lottery to Nevada.
Yes.
How many of those vehicles would you estimate are Nevadans, Las Vegans, coming to buy tickets?
Yeah. If there's a big jackpot, people will come out for that from Nevada. It's all from Nevada because obviously if you live in California, you can just buy it,
Right,
at your
of
local
course.
supermarket. But it's really just around those events. So if there's a big jackpot and there's a lot of excitement in media, then we'll have, basically lines around the door, people coming there. It's not really a huge moneymaker. It's really a draw for us to get people into the casino. But the 50,000 cars take place whether or not there's a lottery event or not. That's just normal everyday traffic. And that's really our core customer.
Good. Well, thank you. No hesitation in supporting you today. Great background. Thank you for being in front of us today, Mr. Butera.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Commissioner Silver.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I think you answered it, the question from Member Krolicki, but I was sad to see that Whiskey Pete had closed. And is it my understanding then you have plans that it will be a travel center? Is that what
Well,
you're going to?
we have a travel center there that we're going to be improving.
Okay.
And with Whiskey Pete's, there was a time when, it was more of a destination and it called for 3 large casinos. That time has passed. That does not mean that spot is not very valuable. We think there are plenty of potential applications that could be higher and better use, which we're studying. I won't comment on them now because they're still being studied and they're speculative, but certainly retail or some kind of entertainment thing for folks in Nevada that have families, et cetera. Some other use, besides the casino. We still have 2 very large casino enterprises across the street. But that's what we're doing. We're really trying to figure out what's the best use for that property as we look into the future.
Yeah, I wondered because you do have concerts out there, and so maybe a concert venue or something like that, because then you could utilize the other 2 hotels. And then it said here that is it correct that you were able to place all of the employees from Whiskey Pete's onto both the Prim Valley, Buffalo Bills, and maybe Seven Seas?
That's correct. Yep, absolutely. We just repositioned them. And again, the idea is to feature the other 2 properties. So we were able to, it's always a little bit of a challenge getting good employees to make, it's really not that far away, but people tend to think it is. We do have employee housing out there, which we provide, right? So a lot of people actually live out there. So yeah, our goal was to maintain all of our employees, which we have.
Okay. And finally, do you guys still have the roller coaster at Buffalo Bills?
Right now, that's not operating. Again, I think that was, it's funny, if everybody who talked about the roller coaster might be open, but I think there's just better things, I think again, that had its day. Could we bring it back? It's under consideration, but there might be some other things we'd prefer to do.
I understand. Well, I know you've been licensed, many, many times, and I'm happy to support your application. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner Silver. I appreciate it.
Sir, I don't have anything to add. Obviously, eminently qualified and I support your application. So at this time, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, I guess Commissioner Marcantonis, he's going to make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 6 as read into the record by Madam Secretary, Ms. Nicole Rupert, and as recommended by Nevada's Gaming Control Board. Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Thank you very much.
Okay,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I very much appreciate your support. Appreciate it. I know it's not. Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, if you could please read in the next non-restricted item, number 7.
Non-restricted number 7 are the applications of Timothy Rambo for licensure as a key employee as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good morning, Chairman Togliatti, members of the commission, Madam Secretary. For the record, Greg Giordano, the law firm McDonald Carano, appearing on behalf of the applicant, Tim Rambo, who's with me. He's applying for licensure as a key employee, general manager of the 3 properties listed on the agenda. As you will know, he gave a brief background of his at the board meeting, and if we could do the same thing here, if you like, Chair, and go from there.
We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Rambo?
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good
Thank you
morning,
for being
everybody.
here.
Good morning, Commissioner, Mr. Secretary. Anyway, born and raised in Montana, moved down here to Vegas, went to college a couple of years and thought, man, I'm ready to go take on the world. So got down to Vegas, started at Samstown in 1988. So just a few years ago. Kind of worked my way up from slot floor to shift manager to slot manager, slot director, was asked to go out and help out at Jokers and Eldo, became the regional manager out there. At some point in there, I took over bingo. So I've kind of made a career of jumping in and helping out wherever I could. Did spend a little time in Louisiana, helping us open up Delta Downs out there. Eventually was asked to go out to Mesquite, help those properties get out of bankruptcy and the troubles that we had out there. Took over multiple departments there, as well as being the director of operations and eventually the GM. And then I moved to the AV, went out there, helped get them out of bankruptcy and get them back on solid feet. And so today I'm now with Terribles. And, I started as the director of gaming operations, and eventually just they kept asking me to take on new items, and I can't say no. So that's why I'm here for not only helping out Pahrump, but being the GM at Indian Springs and both Searchlight properties. Personal note, 3 amazing kids. One's a doctor. One's going to take over the world. She'll be president someday. And my youngest, I'm still waiting to see what he's going to do, but I'm sure it'll be amazing. And luckily, I have an amazing wife too. So,
Well, thank you for being here today again. I'm going to start on my left this time and ask Commissioner Silver or Marcantonis, any questions or comments?
I just really had a comment of, I grew up in Boulder City here, and I'm just shocked to see there's 2, not 1, but 2 casinos in Searchlight.
yeah.
Because you could blink and drive through Searchlight
Yep,
before.
Yeah.
So I was just stunned. But I mean, it's just, you've got a really impressive career. And as I like to say, when Chair Togliatti and I were at the DA's office, everywhere you worked is where we were sent out. We called it the circuit, where you go to Laughlin, Mesquite, Searchlight. I mean, you've done it all.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, really impressive, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And I
Thank you so
support
much.
Yeah, except for I think in the board meeting, did you say that you were a Cowboy fan?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm an Eagle.
Die hard.
So everything was perfect about your resume except for that. I just want to bring that to your attention. Go Eagles.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
I got Eagles at both ends. Once in a while, the Eagles got to get lucky. It has been, a lot of years. So, but but I'll give them this year. They were really good.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rambo, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Quick question. You have worked in some very remote places. Did you say you opened Delta Downs?
Yeah, I was volunteered to go out to Delta Downs.
But what did you do out there? I mean, middle of nowhere.
So basically, they asked for a group of people to come from the other Boyd properties
Okay.
to go out there and help out. And so I went out there, and I was born and raised in the cage and slots and all of that. So I went out there to help the property. There was some uniqueness out there with the gaming control out there. They did not allow us to train any of our people on the floor. We could not have the gaming floor until the minute we opened the gaming floor up. So we opened up with a bunch of very untrained people. And I remember there was the 13 of us, and we had kind of split up into two groups, and I grabbed the 7 because I went to swing shift. And I said, guys, I don't think this is good that we don't go in when it opens. I got a bad feeling. They were saying 300 people, maybe somewhere around there. And so we drove over there about 12:30. It was going to open at 1, and there was somewhere they figured about 16,000 people that showed up. There's 1,498 slot machines there. So we went in and opened the doors. Mr. Boyd and everybody was on the other side. Customers just came through like crazy. And all of a sudden there's jackpots everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm in a different world. And they do the 10 coin test. They had forgotten to take the coins or take it back to normal payout procedures. So we started behind the 8 ball. And so I got on the radio and I said, all slot techs, get up here now. Nobody pay one of these little jackpots until we get it fixed. And then we just fell behind from there. It was just crazy. But because nobody was trained, it really fell on the 13 of us. And we probably had about 7 or 8 people from Bally's that work for the Bally system that just jumped in the booths and they took over. And after about 2 weeks, when we finally got it down to a low rumble, we could kind of turn it over. But I spent about 8 weeks out there. So it was an incredible challenge. It was fun to talk about later. It wasn't much fun when we were there. So
Quite a story. I was most of the traffic for Delta Downs because when I lived in Texas, I would go there a lot as a single man. On the weekends, there was nothing else to do in Texas. Is that where most of that business comes from?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think I saw a Louisiana driver's license until like my last couple days there. Every jackpot, everything was Beaumont, Texas, Houston, Texas, San Antonio, just all the Texas places. I was like, is there like nobody in Louisiana? It was kind of weird. So, but on my final or second to final day, I finally got to see a driver's license from Louisiana. So, but it was an amazing experience.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's a great story. And thank you for being here today, Mr. Rambo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. No more questions for me.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Mr. Rambo, thank you for being here. I believe you answered this or addressed it at the board meeting, but I can't remember. The solar energy partner, it's still listed as concurrent employment, but that's not active, correct?
Not really, not really. If I were to find somebody that I wanted, but I really don't have much to do with it. There's just not a lot of activity in Nevada for that entity. They were from California, which, California has a ton of activity out there. In Las Vegas, it's just hard to get people to train over. So I don't do that anymore.
Okay, just curious about that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with being voluntold to go open property. So good on you for doing that and making that work. It can be stressful, but it's fun.
Yeah, yeah. In the end, it's fun.
Yeah, it is. I don't have any other questions. I'm happy to support your application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Mr. Giordano, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Mr. Rambo, I couldn't wait to meet you. Growing up on a farm in Montana, you need to be resourceful and take care of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You can't really call anybody, but you've brought those skill sets to the gaming industry. And I say this carefully, but we spend much time with people who are in the C-suites and things like that. And, the vision, you're in the trenches. I mean, you've touched everything, fixed everything. You're like the MacGyver of gaming. It's you're somebody who folks want to have around if there's a pickle or something going on. But I just applaud your life story that way.
Wow, thank you very much.
I really do. Hey, it's never easy, but when you get a privileged license, you have to give up certain things and there's a transparency. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, not to put you in an awkward spot, but just so we hear it. And again, I think you've overcome much of this, but it's an important part of your story and part of your character. But could you talk a little bit about the finances? We don't need to get into deep detail. And again, I'm not trying to put you in a spot, but your big financial issue was like 25 years ago. I get family and those kind of things, but you still carry you're a leveraged man. And I just want to, you're able to handle it. The IRS issue will go away shortly, those kind of things. But could you just quickly touch on those things, please?
Yeah, basically, I mean, I've had struggles in life. My family's had struggles. I've always put my family first. That's where some of my expenses has come from, is taking care of family members. My wife and I do very well of taking care of everything. We're getting on the record or getting to get everything straight as far as my work and at the properties and all that. I never have any variances from the time I started in the company. Money's always been incredibly important to me. It's funny, when I was preparing for this and I knew this question might come up, I had an incident the other day where we were 70 cents off, and I can't go in front of the commission and say I've never been short when I had the 70 cents. But then I found out there were some paperwork errors at corporate, and we got our 70 cents back. So
that's enough said. I just, and to me, it's part of your strength because you were taking care of things. You were taking care of the in-laws, if you will, and it's just a testament to you. But it's also a deep hole you dug, but you made it right. You've never missed a payment. All the things that I would expect. So I think it's very much in the positive column, but just making sure that you've got that under control. Seems to be.
And it was so important for me to get my kids their college. When we ran into troubles with the house and all that. It was incredibly important to my wife and I that we said, you know what, we're going to give up the house, but the kids are going to stay in college. And I'm going to give my kids a much better footing than what I came here. I came here with $50 in my pocket and a 1979 Oldsmobile and nothing else. And my goal was to put my kids on a platform that they can start. My daughter's doing very well at BMM. My son's a doctor. So I feel like I've been successful.
I think a measure of a person is often, as a parent, looking at what their kids have accomplished. And you've got one in medicine, you've got one about to run the world, apparently, and one who has many other options. So again, I think it's a touching story, but still an important chapter in your life.
I get it.
I applaud how you've been able to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm the one who usually has to drive, and I don't do it frequently, but coming down 95, I'm always fascinated when I go by the test site, but then I got Creech, but the nicest convenience store, if that's what you got to call it, is at Terrible's, on the other side across from Creech. And I almost invariably stop because it's the first civilization you see after, a long drive, but it's a splendid property.
It's a beautiful property. The Terrible's has done a fantastic job setting up those casinos, and with the artwork and bombs and all the stuff that they have inside there. It's just amazing. And it's amazing how many people stop to see our bathrooms. We
perhaps
we have a lot of characters in there. We have Batman, Superman, and all that. You always walk in there and people are in there taking pictures. It's funny.
And not to be indelicate, but driving from the north south, that's the first thing you see, and then it's a welcome relief, so to speak.
Yep.
All right. Now I'm very proud to support your application today.
Thank you.
And your life story, and I use the term MacGyver, and I don't know if people even know what I'm describing, but it was my favorite show. But with a Swiss Army knife, you can fix anything, and the world's okay. And duct tape. You're that kind of guy, and I think Terrible's is extremely fortunate to have you. good for stepping up, and I just wish you all the best luck in the world.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I think growing up on the farm where you're out there by yourself and have a lot of things going on, you got to be resourceful. So it's
Godspeed, sir.
thank you.
Sir, I don't have any additional questions or comments for you at this time. I would ask one of my colleagues if they have a motion.
Chair Tagliati, I would move for the approval of non-restricted item number 7 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
And there are none opposed. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Tagliati.
Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 8.
Non-restricted number 8 are the applications of Balamurugan Ganesan for finding of suitability as a manager and or key executive as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
It's still morning.
Good morning. Dennis Gutwald with the law firm of McDonald Carano with me as Bala Ganesan. With your permission, I'll have him talk to you briefly about his background and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary. For the record, my name is Balamurugan Ganesan, and I'm joined here by Justin Moore, CEO of Mesquite, and also Dick Tomaso, who's in charge of government affairs. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you and for your consideration for my Nevada gaming license application. I'll be brief. I'm currently the managing director of Oak Tree's Special Situation Group since 2017. My group specializes in private equity investment with a growing focus in gaming investments and also in Nevada. At Oak Tree, I oversee value creation efforts across several portfolio companies, including our gaming investments, specifically in Mesquite and Interblock. As you know, we could kind of go through some of the work we are doing as a major transformation in Mesquite, as you probably saw in the previous board meeting as well. I have a deep appreciation of the high ethical standards that is held by the gaming board, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you, and thank you for being here in person and giving us your time. It's always a pleasure to meet the applicants in person, so we do appreciate that. At this time, I'm going to start, I think, on this side with Commissioner Krolicki. Do you have any questions or comments for?
Thank you, Chair Tagliati. Mr. Johnson, welcome. Thank you for being in front of us today and spending some time with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Mr. Gutwald, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Fascinating story. Again, from Singapore and military, and you've just tackled the world through, education. I know Judge Assad spent some time, braggadocious about the MIT part of your world for your master's. My oldest daughter spent time there and in the other school in Cambridge that's fancy pants, but it's an extraordinary journey that you've had in landing at Oak Tree. They have a fascinating portfolio and a business model and alternative investments, and good on them for grabbing someone like you with such an eclectic and varied world experience, life experience, professional experience, to be part of their think tank portfolio, if that's even a term that's applicable. But since you're non-executive in some of these things, that's almost, you think for them, you plot and strategize. Yes, good on you for being clever and sufficient bounds to do that with them.
Thank
you. Just to confirm, so with the Mesquite Gaming, because you're commuting from Southern California, and I think you said 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. You got young kids.
That's right, sir. Yes.
You got kids at home.
I have 3 boys, 12, 10, and 8. Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here for 2 to 3 weeks out of the month, as a regulator, but, don't forget what's home. But could you talk about those responsibilities? And also, I know it's interim, so, the responsibilities here, but the stuff in Slovenia is also, fascinating. It is your job, even though they're going to be replacing, or having a CEO, in the next 6 to 12 months. Do you go to once a month, once a quarter, but how do you
Yeah.
You live in California, you're spending most of the month here, and you've got these responsibilities for an incredibly important,
Mhm.
vast company in Slovenia.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about, what the roles are for Mesquite and Interblock and, how I'm sufficiently kind of handling both of them. With Mesquite, I'm a non-executive manager. So you have a very capable team that Justin Moore has built. Justin is incredible. Since he came in, he has retained the key employees, really kind of invigorated the culture there. And, he has hired, we hired like new CFO, new executive team there, new CMO and everyone there. So the team is really solid. So the role I play there is we are on calls pretty much almost daily. And, we have a structured calls and informal calls as well. I talk to Justin all the time. And while I'm here, at least 2, 3 times a month, I'm in Mesquite. And the team is doing really well there. So from that point of view, that's my interaction. That's the role we play together. At Interblock, back to your question, I've been to Slovenia last year, and John is there pretty much like, once or twice a month easily. And my role there is a big portion of the role is the operations in the US, which is the biggest market for us. So part of my role is making sure the operations going well in the US. And in terms of production and everything, we have very capable leaders there. They are kind of having a strong oversight on manufacturing in Slovenia. As you said, as you correctly pointed out, it's an interim role and we are finding the right person to kind of take over. But the way I'm kind of handling it with the travels to Vegas and having Zoom and the connectivity and having daily calls, pretty much around the clock, because Slovenia time zone differences is working out really well.
Well, again, I applaud you for being able to juggle that. Interblock I've heard of the company, but, until this all came in front of me, but you're in 38 states, 94 countries, 250 jurisdictions, and 700 employees, and you're the COO, even if it's on an interim basis. So that still is a lot of bandwidth. But I'll go back to where I started. I mean, you're a clever man. And I know you're a boiler maker too. Did you graduate
Yes,
with
sir.
a mechanical engineering degree in 3 years?
I did, but part of the reason it wasn't, I wasn't able to do it in 3 years because I was, intelligent and anything is because I came from Singapore where we did the Cambridge O and A level exams, which are a little bit more.
You placed out of your first year.
Yes, that's right. Pretty much tested out the entire first year. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Purdue's a great school too. Now, again, your global agility and accomplishment is extraordinary.
Thanks, sir.
Kudos for Oak Tree to find you. I'm not quite sure how you found them or they found you, but apparently it's working really well for all of you. And I am, very enthusiastically and impressively supporting your application today.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it.
Commissioner Solus Rainey?
Mr. Gunnison, thank you for being here. I appreciated your presentation and have no concerns with respect to your background. I understand this is somewhat of a temporary role, and I assume the search is still ongoing.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any questions. Again, I just appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the support.
Commissioner Marcantonis?
Excellent background. Do you still have family in Singapore? And if so, how often do you get back, Mr. Gannison? I mean, you travel everywhere else, it seems, in the world.
Yes. So the answer is I do have my entire direct family there.
Oh.
My parents and 2 of my sisters. The third one lives in Finland. And I go back every year. So I've made it a point to bring each one of my sons one-on-one, just like a solo to back to your point. I don't have much time with family, but whatever little time I have, I maximize it. So that's how I juggle things. But yes,
It's a very humid
it's very
part of
humid.
the world, isn't it?
That's right. As soon as if you're there in Changi Airport, as soon as the sliding door opens, you feel
Yes.
like a chunk of something hit you in the face.
Yes, I'm aware.
You almost need a pair of gills.
My former company owned or built the Marina Bay Sands there.
Oh, is that right? Yes.
So
Beautiful property. I go there all the time.
It's got that very unusual swimming pool at the top.
Yes.
That's worldwide iconic. But I personally, anyone who's ever asked me, I say, don't get in the pool. even my chairman and everyone said, do not get in the pool. There's too many little kids in that pool. Because everybody wants to take that photo of the infinity pool up, whatever it is, 60, 70 stories of all of Singapore. But anyway, sorry.
right.
Anyway, not to keep
The,
you here.
the pool, I mean, so if I can indulge a little bit, it's a kind of segment. I think it's like 3 segments.
Yeah.
And I think one segment is like adults only or something.
Yes.
So to your point, you could do that. But if anyone goes to Singapore, you should absolutely check out that pool because you get a view of the entire bay with the financial center district. It's an incredible view. Yeah.
Well, in that case, I feel I've done a service to anyone considering to go there. Good to have you here. No hesitation in supporting you today.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
Appreciate
Gadsden.
it,
I got it before. That explains all this turning.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you again for coming. I was just curious on how you managed your time between, Mesquite Gaming being the manager and also the COO, how you manage your time between the two interblock.
Yeah. So how I managed my time is, one of the biggest things that we had to do in our role, because, we do have portfolios of companies. And in this case, if I'm playing interim role, it is pretty, you need to be engaged, is we have very structured like weekly calls that we have agenda and topics that we are covering. And I also rely on the Oaktree team because we have associates and VPs who are, for example, with Mesquite, we are looking at different deals like, that we're working on or constructions that's going on right there. So we have folks in my team working with Justin and the team to kind of look through the analysis, to make sure the compliance, everything is fitting in well. And then I insert myself at the right level that I'm maximizing the value I could play as a leader there. So we work as a team to kind of maximize the coverage here. It's not easy, as I say. I mean, I think the same question is kind of coming up in different ways, but I feel like it's been very effective.
Well, your resume, again, very, very impressive. Of course, my favorite job that you had was with Taco Bell, my very favorite restaurant in the world. And I'm happy to support your application.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wish I had Taco Bell gift cards to give out, but
You didn't make the Mexican pizza go away. You had no part of that, right?
I'll plead the fifth on that one. That is funny. I was involved in that one because we actually did analysis on cost of food and cost of labor, like a 2x2 matrix, and then Mexican pizza was on the wrong segment.
Not by me. It was on the right side.
But I think they brought it back. I think
They did bring it back.
So
yes, and so I came back.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, sir, obviously, notwithstanding your questionable decision on Taco Bell's menu, I think you have the support of all of the commission, and at this time, I'm going to, I don't have any questions or comments other than to say that I support your application and without question, and would ask for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 8 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, at this time, it's been 2 hours and we have a court reporter and commissioners that are going to take a comfort break for 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 12:10.
Hello, this is the court reporter. I cannot hear anybody from the city of Boulder. The mute is on.
Okay, we're going to start again. One moment, please. Okay, can you hear us now?
Sure can. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take it, Madam Court Reporter, that you did not hear Mr. Cohen's introductory remarks.
I sure didn't. I didn't hear anything because it was just unmuted at this moment.
You don't get to charge your client twice, but we need you to do that again.
Do we need to read in the agenda item again, or?
Did you hear the agenda item being read into the record?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, so go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Madam Secretary, Steve Cohen on behalf of Najim Khan and Treasure Island on this matter. Also present is Stan Johnson on behalf of Treasure Island and Mr. Khan. I've asked Mr. Khan to be brief in his remarks because I think he went pretty well into his history with his gaming experience and his hospitality experience. With that, I would turn it over to Mr. Khan.
Sir, thank you.
Madam Chair, Member Commission, Member Secretary, good afternoon. I've been with Phil Ruffin for over 30 years. I started with Mr. Ruffin at the Long Beach, actually I have 40 and above years in hospitality and gaming. I started with Mr. Ruffin in 1996. I went to Long Beach Marriott. That's right at the airport, beautiful hotel. And I was there for 2 years. And after that, I went over, Mr. Ruffin bought Frontier Hotel and Casino. I was transferred over to the Frontier Hotel and Casino. I was there from 1998 to 2004. And then from 2004, Mr. Ruffin decided to send me over to Bahamas, which is Crystal Palace Casino. And I was there till 2006 when Mr. Ruffin decided to sell the Bahamas property. Then I was sent back to Long Beach Marriott because we were having some renovations over there. So I was there for maybe a couple of years when Mr. Ruffin decided to buy Treasure Island in 2009. And I've been with Mr. Ruffin at the Treasure Island until now. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Commissioner Silver, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Khan?
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I've gone through, obviously, your background. It's very impressive. So many years with gaming. I'm impressed that you work 7 days a week and live at the hotel. I hope you have a really good room.
I do.
I assume that you would. And I fully support your application. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Marcantonis?
Thank you for being here, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
I think obviously you also have, besides a good room, you obviously have a wonderful spouse. To be staying in the hotel all the time is be backwards and forwards. The Crystal Palace in the Bahamas. What drove why did Mr. Ruffin eventually leave that territory? Any particular reason, or?
You got a good price for it.
Okay, that's a very good reason. Everything's for sale. Is that what you're saying to me?
That's exactly right what I'm saying.
Well, you've got an amazing background, and of course,
thank you.
Treasure Island is one of the iconic properties on the Strip. My little boys, when they grew here in the late 90s, used to want to be dragged to watch those two ships battling just about every night. I miss it. But I have no problem supporting you, sir. Excellent background.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Mr. Khan, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Tell me how you came to live on the property.
When I came back from Long Beach Marriott, when Mr. Ruffin bought that Treasure Island, so I stayed on the property and I've been there ever since 2009.
Okay. How often do you get back to your home, to a home?
Well, we have a house in California also. My wife is there. And then, she commutes. So sometimes she comes in, sometimes I'll go over there. But we have a house in California. I have 3 boys. So 2 of them are here and 1 is in California. I got 4 grandkids, little ones. So
And your kids are fully grown, so I mean.
Yeah, one works for IGT
Mhm.
and the other one works for Caesars. And the one in California works for Unilever.
I'm sorry, for who?
Unilever
Okay,
Company. He's one of the directors over there.
okay, great. Yeah, it seems like that would be a tough road. I'm always, I don't love to be away from my own bed, but I
Right.
guess this has become your own bed,
Right.
so.
Well, the kids are here, so, she comes over all the time.
Yeah, well, good. All right, I didn't have any question about your background. I mean, you had a prior application and I understand you were very responsive this go round. So I
Right.
appreciate that and, looks like you're in the right place for you and
you.
doing a good job. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here, with us today.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Khan, before I get to you, I've got to do a shout out to your counsel today.
My
Mr.
buddy on the
Cohen.
left.
Mr. Cohen, in front of folks, if they don't know already, you once upon a time did this gaming commission stuff. And you were just very gracious when I first came on this board. You were, a wealth of information and mentorship, and I just appreciate that greatly.
Thank you, Commissioner Krolicki. Appreciate it.
Mr. Khan.
Yes, sir.
Is a guy who thinks he lives in a hotel because he travels all the time. You actually do. So you're my idol. It's all good. The only professional question I really had was your 22 direct reports. I mean, I know they can always find you because they know where you are,
Yes.
but oh my goodness, that's just a lot of reporting to you. How do you manage that? Is in the kind of scheduling those
Once you
things?
get into the swing of things, then it's easy to manage. We have committee, we have, meetings, and then we go through everything from bottom to up, customer service, everything, what's going on in the hotel, what we plan to do, what development we're gonna have, what renovation we're doing, and all of that stuff is reported to me directly by the 22 directors.
Well, Mr. Ruffin's very fortunate to have you, and you've been with him 30 years. You've been with your wife, I think, for 47 years. So
Yes.
You're a committed man, but there's not a square inch in that property that you're not familiar with.
I'm very well familiar with everything, yes.
And that's just
Thank you.
extraordinary. So no,
And Mr. Ruffin is right next door to me, so if anything happens, he just have to knock on the door.
he's your neighbor?
He's my neighbor.
You get turn down service and chocolate on the pillow every night? What's the deal? I like that. Yeah. No, I may have to discuss this with Mrs. Krolicki. No, you're profoundly, of course you're qualified for
Thank
this. You do it. What an asset you are and a trusted one. And I fully support your application today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, I also support your application. I don't have any additional questions or comments. It is good to see your counsel here. I spent time on this very commission with him and always enjoyed working with him. So there's that. But at this time, do one of my colleagues have have the motion to make?
Chair Tagliati, I would move for the approval of non-restricted item number 9 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati, for the comments. I'd also like to thank the Investigation Division, Agent Keating, Matt Doyle, and of course, Chief Hoffman. Thank you very much.
That brings us to. All right, at this time, Madam Secretary, I believe that brings us to our restricted items held out for discussion. Please, if you would, read in restricted number 1.
Restricted number 1 are the applications of SC Taverns LLC doing business as Mountainside Restaurant and Tavern for a restricted gaming license and of Donald Henslick for licensure as a member and manager. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, and Madam Secretary, I'm honored to be here. My name is Luke Bradford with the law firm of Hutchison and Steffen. I'm here with my colleague John Moran III, as well as Jeff Donato of Argentum Law, as well as the applicant, Donald Henslick. And I'm honored to present to you the application for a restricted gaming license of SC Taverns LLC, doing business as Mountainside Restaurant and Tavern at 1442 East Lake Mead Parkway, Henderson. And as you may have witnessed in the December and February Gaming Control Board meetings, there was a restructuring of the ownership. Before it was a 50-50 between Mr. Henslick and Mr. Baca. And now Donald Henslick is the sole 100% owner, member, and manager of the LLC. And Justin Baca will move forward with the key employee application as the general manager, as a satisfaction of the condition that a key employee application be filed within 60 days of the issuance of the state gaming license. And we request that you would follow the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board for approval with the condition as I had just stated. And before I hand over the microphone, I would like to thank Chief Hoffman and Senior Agent Martirosian and all the rest of the people in the Gaming Control Board who accomplished the impressive feat of turning around from the December Gaming Control Board to get them on the February Gaming Control Board meeting and to be here today. So thank you, and I hand over the microphone.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet all of you and be here in front of you. My experience is, of course, is in the flooring industry. I've been on my own since 1978, so I've been basically working for myself since then. I've had employees since then, or people working with me for all those years, which is like 48 years. I came out here in 93. Started subcontracting again. I got my license in 1997, my contractor's license. In 2001, I opened a flooring store out here with my partner. And we basically ran that business since 2001 to 2015, where I personally purchased the business. Been running it ever since. We average over 600 contracts a year. We average about 600 contracts a year. So we do a lot of business. We're in good standings with the Nevada State Contractors License Board, and we're also got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. On a personal note, I've got 4 kids. I've raised 4 other kids, so I've raised 8 kids. I've got 12 grandkids, and basically almost all of them living here in Las Vegas. And I'm here to answer any questions, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being here today. We appreciate getting to meet you in person. At this time, I will ask my colleagues. I'll start with Commissioner Solis Rainey. Do you have any questions, comments?
Mr. Henslick, thank you for being here. Your flooring business, I understand your daughter is involved in running that?
She
also?
does. She does run it.
Is that the same daughter that's an ICU nurse?
No, I
Okay.
get 2 kids that are nurses. She works for me all the time.
So that's her, excuse me, that's her full-time job?
That's her full-time
Okay,
job.
I just want to, and that's Mr. Bacchus's wife.
No, Mr. Barker's wife's emergency nurse. or
Okay, that's,
yeah.
I got confused with that in the material, so.
There's 8 of them, so we'll.
Okay, great. And you understand, I mean, ultimately, if you get approval today, I mean, the buck stops with you.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you're intend on being involved with business on a day-to-day basis.
Worry that my daughter thinks she could run the other business all by herself. I'm leaning towards hiring another employee for her. So the burden isn't all on her shoulders. That frees up my time. I'd like to be there approximately 40 hours a week at the bar. I'm not one of these people that can sit aside and just let other people do the job. I've got to be a part of it. I'm actually the one now making all the decisions, writing all the checks, doing all that stuff 100%. So I plan on learning this business inside and out. I know it's not an overnight thing. I know it's going to take me a year or 2 years, whatever it takes, but I want to learn the business from the ground up, and I'm going to put the time into doing that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I know because of the prior configuration, the plan was a little bit differently. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that, now it's all on you. I mean, you would be the licensee if approved. And while Mr. Baca is involved and he has some good experience, I mean, there were obviously concerns that caused that to be returned to staff. So I understand his involvement, but ultimately, we're going to
100%.
look to you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't have
Yes.
any other questions about
Thank
your
you.
background. Thank you.
Commissioner Krolicki?
Mr. Henslick, thank you again for spending time with us today, and shout out to Mr. Moran and Mr. Donato and Mr. Bradford. Is that the Hutchison Steffen firm is well represented today. Mr. Henslick, this has been complicated to watch. It's been a multiple month dance, but I appreciate all that's been done, the Gaming Control Board and the staff. People really worked hard to get you teed up here today to be in a format that works for folks. So again, my kudos to folks who've made this happen. There are a couple things. One is, I believe the original $60,000 loan has been repaid. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you believe with that repayment, there's still sufficient working capital to make sure that the operation's going to be viable and able to do the startup costs and operating expenses that will be necessary?
We've got a loan for 1.5. I putting in 570,000 of cash or out of my checking account or my money market. And we got a 6-figure contract with Golden Gaming to use their machines. So, I mean, that's probably going to leave $300,000 to $450,000 worth of operating costs or operating expenses or operating dollars. Yep.
Well, you answered my question on that. Here it is. Okay. It is the 1.5. Your promissory note of 685?
570. 570 I'll put in out of my money market. And then we get the 6-figure contract from Golden Gaming. So that it's going to leave plenty of money for operating.
Good. I appreciate that, and that satisfies that. And your son-in-law, Mr. Baca, I know there was discussion that I think within 60 days, there will be an application as a key employee. Is that correct? Is that on track?
Absolutely. And I kind of agree with that situation anyway, since I've got no experience in the gaming industry. Having a key employee, I thought that was a reasonable request, and absolutely within 60 days, we'll get that up for you.
Good. I thought that all made sense. And again, I applaud Gaming Control Board folks. And again, we're here to get to a pathway of yes, but we got to do all things we need to do. And again, I think that was everyone at their best, providing a pathway to a solution. You just spoke to Commissioner Solis-Rainey about this, but it was my impression that I know one of your daughters runs the flooring business every day, but I thought I read that you would be hiring somebody additionally to come in to kind of fill your shoes, if that's possible, on some basis. I think you just said there's disagreement with your daughter, not the first time, as a father of 3 daughters, but are you hiring somebody else to work at the flooring company, or is that still subject to conversation and negotiation with your daughter?
She is super gung-ho, and she wants that opportunity to do it herself. I want to hire an employee, and I think that Albert, during our conversations, we're in the next weeks or months that we're going to go through and just hire another employee. Yes.
Okay. Well, good luck on that. But I have no further questions, but I appreciate, again, all of the effort that's gone in here. I mean, it's been tough. It's been a thing to unwind, but I think where you are today and the application, I fully support it. And I just wish you and your family the best of luck in all your ventures. But since we regulate this one, especially on this restricted gaming license.
Yes, thank you very much. And I do agree with you 100%. This has been a uphill battle, and it's been handled professionally and very well and very quickly, I might add too. So yeah, I appreciate all the hard work by the investigating team and everybody involved.
Commissioner Silver?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, I watched the control board meeting and I saw that you had pledged 100% of your time, not retiring. You'll be there to oversee everything, right?
Right.
And I also saw that Mr. Baca, you also had another maybe manager coming in as well.
Mr.
help.
Chavez. Yeah, he's going to manage the back of the house.
And both very, they've both got a lot of experience with obviously bars. So having reviewed everything and with the restructuring, I'm more than happy to support your application.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here. Best of
Absolutely.
luck.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Hensley, thank you again for being here today. Give us some background. Has this been is this a passion project really for you? Has this been like a dream for years and years? When I think about when you've got such a successful flooring business and then this little T-junction.
The business has been there for so long and running that it's taken less and less of my time because my daughter's basically stepped up and learned the business and really running it. So this is just another adventure I can jump into that I can, and like I said, I'm not one of these people that stand around and can't be a part of it. I want to be part of the decision making. I want to be a part of every aspect of the business, which I plan on being. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So it does. And
Oh,
actually,
okay.
but the thing that I was going to focus on ask that you had partially answered already was what are your philosophies as a businessman and how these businesses run? And of course, gaming licenses, as we all know, are a privilege and they require the highest level of controls and integrities. And the buck stops with you, and you've already acknowledged that. And knowing that you will be so involved actually is, I think, a great benefit and an asset to the application.
Thank you.
No hesitation in supporting your application today, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Sir, I think we have between the previous month and this month with the 4 meetings or, multiple meetings, we have made a complete record here. I have nothing to add to anything my colleagues have said. So at this point, I'm prepared to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move for approval of restricted item number 1 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Gaming Control Board with the conditions stated therein.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And there are none opposed. Congratulations.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Madam Secretary, if you could please read in restricted number 3.
Restricted number 3 is the application of Swami G. Sahai for licensure to receive a percentage of gaming revenue from United Coin Machine Company doing business as Century Gaming Technologies, doing business at 7-Eleven store number 25578. It is also the applications of Benu Tekia and Yug Tekia for licensure as a member and manager as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Madam Secretary Jeff Donato, enrolled agent. Here with me today are the applicants, Mrs. Tekia and Mr. Tekia. Mrs. Tekia is the mother of Mr. Tekia. We gave a presentation at the board. We can be happy to do that again, or we can go right to questionings, whichever you prefer.
Well, it would be nice if they could introduce themselves to us.
Yes.
Nice to meet them in person, even though we've seen them before on video.
Good
We've watched
afternoon,
you.
everybody. My name is Benu Tekia. We got our first store in 2010, and the second store we had in 2014, and now our son has joined the business. We got the last store last year, so he's going to join us and help us with the managing of that store.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. Sir, step forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Yog Tekia. I helped my parents originally as early as like 8 or 9 years old when they first got their first business. I was helping stock the shelves. After that, I attended college at Oregon State University. I was priorly doing pre-med, but then I decided that business was more my passion. So then during COVID, I transferred to UNLV. I am currently a senior over there and graduating this fall or this spring. I took over the location on Boulder and Lamb last year of April. I've really just been taking over operations, trying to get my parents a little bit less work to do, eventually take over the operation in full, and hopefully expand locations.
So you graduate in May?
Yes,
Is
I
that-
do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have a couple, UNLV grads, three.
Yeah.
Three. We're just saying, not that we're partial, but we're
I
partial.
prefer UNLV over UNR all day.
The reps.
Yep.
All right, so at this time, I will go ahead and ask my colleagues. I'll start on this side. I don't remember where I started last time, but Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati. Welcome. Good to see you. And Mr. Donato, it's very nice to see you. I think you were physically distracted about a month ago, and it's good to see you on your feet and doing great. Thank you. This is, we spent a lot of time this morning talking about coming from Las Vegas and being born of this place. But the other wonderful story that we see regularly, those who come from, far away, who've made this place better and provided, that infrastructure and second generation, someone who's becoming licensed. So, I love the story. I appreciate your architecture background, Mom, that was all wonderful. And to you, sir, it's, to juggle all of these things, but it's clear that you've got the work ethic from your parents that you'll need to do these things. I have no question about your abilities to carry this forward and be successful and to be trusted with a restricted license. So I will fully support your applications today.
Thank you.
Mr. Tiki, I also don't have any concerns about your background. I love seeing our young men and women stay here and give back to the community that raised them. So this is a great opportunity for you that your parents are giving you. Do you have any siblings?
I do have one brother. He's a pharmacist at Sunrise Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not another store for the family.
No,
I'm
he
teasing.
doesn't want to go in business.
He's not the business type. He's the doctor. He's a smart guy in the family.
Hey, I don't know about that. You're not, you don't have
He's also
16 more
really
years of
smart.
school. It sounds like you made a good choice for you.
Yeah.
I don't have any concerns. I wish you the very best of luck. I appreciate that you've already attended the restricted licensee seminar. And I hope, you learn what you needed to from that. A lot of it is just boots on the ground and, staying up to date and not getting complacent about the gaming requirements, but I know you can do it. So good luck and go Rebels.
Thank you.
Further questions than what has already been asked, and we'll be supporting this application.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Silver?
I just echo the comments of my fellow commissioners and wanted to congratulate you on graduation. Tell me more though about, I know it's Lee Business School, but this I've never heard of the entrepreneurship degree, which is really cool because my daughter said she wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And she's just graduating high school now, and she was going into Lee Business School. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about this particular degree.
So I chose the degree after, well, I was originally pre-med and then I decided to go towards business. There wasn't a specific major that I was more focusing on, but entrepreneurship covered a little bit of everything. I eventually want to get into a little bit of real estate. Of course, business management is already what I'm doing. So it gave me a little bit of scope into each different side of the business. So that's what I kind of prefer to choose. And the degree itself, you get a lot of options. I really want to go towards real estate. So I took a lot of classes in real estate, but I also take finance as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. And I know this is not your first rodeo with the licensing. So I'm happy and it's a pleasure to support your applications.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any additional comments or questions. It appears if no one else does, then this would be the time, it's in proper form for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of restricted item number 3 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to
Thank you.
thank Senior Agent Lombardo for all his hard work on this application. And I'll also extend a congratulations to Chief Hoffman. on. I hope you have a great retirement and best of luck in your future. So appreciate it.
We're in denial about that.
So I think I am too, so.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in our next agenda item?
Next for your consideration are two gaming employee registration appeals. The first item is Tommy Hill, case number 24LV00453. See outside.
He left forever, or we don't know? Okay, well, if he comes back before the end of the meeting, then we'll entertain his appeal. But I'll trail it, I guess, and make a note that we need to recall it before the conclusion of the meeting. And at this time, Madam Secretary, could you call in our next agenda item, please?
The second gaming employee registration appeal is Sandy Sita, case number 24LV00500.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Honorable Judge Tagliati and Madam Secretary and other members of the board. I'm Michael Becker, appearing on behalf of Sandy Sita. Mr. Sata, prior to the event, which has him before this board, has had an illustrious career serving this community, over 30 years in executive police functioning. He is the former police chief of UNLV, former police chief for College of Southern Nevada. At the time of this event, his role was head of security at Mandalay Bay for MGM. He has support here today of a former police chief of UNLV, Jose Alique, Elique. And you're on.
Before you jump in, would you mind if I do what I always do in these cases?
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. I lay out the procedure, and it's what I do in every gaming employee registration appeal, so I'd like to do it in this one as well. I just like to make a record that much like an appellate court, the commission is bound by the record that we've been provided below, if you will, from the materials and the hearing before the hearing master, and we are not going to be considering evidence outside of that record, as it would not be proper to do so. We will hear from you, and to the extent you so choose your client, on all matters associated with this. Then when you've submitted it for any questions or comments by the commission, they will ask either you or your client questions. And then at some point after a motion is made, there will be discussion on the motion. And at that point, you will not be involved. So I like to just lay it out for every single person so that they know what's expected. And so we're ready for you to get into the substance of the case.
Thank you. So the relevant NRS provision 463.335 gave the board discretion, and it said that they may suspend an application or license. And there are three criteria under which they can do so. Under subpart 12C, if the applicant committed, attempted, or conspired to commit any crime of moral turpitude. D, committed a felony or gross misdemeanor. Or E, which is kind of a catch-all, I'll skip E because that wasn't relevant here, but F, remains in constructive custody of any federal, state, or municipal law enforcement authority. Reference is made in the report, in the recommendation, that the board took into account the Las Vegas Justice Court case records in this matter. At the time Mr. Sata appeared before the board, the charges against him had already been largely dealt with in the courts, and he pled, in essence, to one count of disturbing the peace. That's all it was. He had no criminal record prior, has had no criminal record since, but it was one count of disturbing the peace. and which was not a felony or gross misdemeanor or a crime of moral turpitude. There was an applicant that came before this board previously that talked about struggles in life. This was certainly the low point for Mr. Seda. His marriage fell apart, and he was in a toxic relationship that resulted in charges being filed and later dismissed. And the only thing on his record is disturbing the peace. He is now divorced. He has 2 children that he raises. He shares 50-50 custody with those children. When I talk about how the board has discretion, yes, they may suspend his license, but we're asking this commission to consider whether it was appropriate in this case, again, where you just have a very low-grade misdemeanor. The board investigates an applicant, but the board does not conduct does not make facts of finding, unlike the DMV where you're entitled to a hearing. The board does not take evidence, does not hear from witnesses. In this case, that is handled by the courts. And I would suggest that it is appropriate for this commission to give deference and respect to the findings in court proceedings. And the finding herein was a simple misdemeanor disturbing the peace, not any of the other charges. The reason why subsection F came into play is because by definition, if you have a current open case, you are considered to be in constructive custody of federal, state, or municipal law enforcement. And Mr. Seda was deemed to be in constructive custody because he was awaiting the conclusion of his case, which came in November, months after he went before the board, when he completed the requirements that were asked of him. But, and then the case was closed, and that's it. Mr. Seda, he lost his job as security chief because he couldn't do that job without his license. He's been out of the industry now for over a year. We would ask this commission to view this as a slight blemish on an otherwise illustrious career, a struggle in life, which he's overcome, and he wants to get back to work. I would ask the board to consider all of this in making a decision, because much like the board had discretion when they chose to not reinstate Mr. Seda's license at the time it went before them, this commission has the discretion to accept, modify, or reverse the board's decision. And I think in deference to the service Mr. Seda has provided to this community, and when taking all of this into consideration, that is the appropriate thing to do here, and to reverse the decision and let him move forward with his application. And with that, I would offer Mr. Seda if he has anything to add or if you have questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Madam Secretary. My name is Sandy Seda, SANDYSEDA, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for being here today and your patience as we got through the agenda. At this time, if any of my colleagues have any questions for Mr. Seda or his counsel, I will open it up and perhaps start with Commissioner Marcantonis, just because.
Certainly. Thank you for being here, Mr. Seda.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please, again, we have read all the transcripts that we have in front of us, and we've also listened to others. But give us again a brief background. You did military service?
Yes, I did.
For our country.
I'm going to try to speak slowly. Once in a while, my New York accent kicks in.
That's okay.
But I'll tell you, I'm born and raised in New York City in the Bronx. Grew up on welfare in the projects. I was one of 5 kids who graduated high school, went on to attend John Jay College of Criminal Justice, where I received my bachelor's degree. And I'm also a UNLV alum. I received my master's in public administration from there. After I graduated high school, I joined the Marine Corps. I entered into a tradition in my family. My father, my uncles all served. My brother served. I served 4 years on active duty in embassy duty in London, England, where I lived there for 4 years. At the end of that, I came back to New York City and joined the reserves. So I stayed active in the Marine Corps. I did a total of 22 years in the Marine Corps, 4 active, 18 in the reserves. I was deployed twice after the Gulf War. I spent a year in Iraq, came back, and at that time I'd already moved to Las Vegas. I moved here November 1st of 2001. I was one of the original first responders at 9/11. Stayed there for 3 weeks after the recovery effort. And then I decided I didn't want to live in New York City anymore. And I vacationed here previously on two separate occasions. I decided I wanted to move to Las Vegas and start a new life. I've been involved in the police department as a police officer, sworn officer for 30 years, 10 in New York City, 20 here. The last 20 years of my police career I spent as a police executive, where I created and I was hired to create the CSN, the College of Southern Nevada Police Department. I did that for 10 years. An opportunity opened up at the UNLV to join a larger department within our sister institutions. I took that position as the Deputy Chief of Police for Operations. I did that for 9 years. And upon the chief's retirement, I was named acting chief, where I stayed there for a year. After that, a position at Mandalay Bay had opened up. I thought it would be a good fit for me, given my education, training, and experience. And I thought it'd be exciting to work in the hotels. I've been here for so long. And I was hired. That was the best job I've ever had in my life.
Well, that is, yes, it's a very strong background and it's reflected in the transcripts that we've had. I knew that you had served in the military, but I wanted to open up by thanking you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions at this time, Chair.
Commissioner Solis Rainey?
Mr. Seda, I echo the appreciation for your service. I looked through all the materials. I was trying to find the age of your children. How old are they now?
I have 5 children, 37, 27, 25, and then 15 and 13.
Okay. So
4
they're
boys and 1 daughter.
and you share joint custody for the 2 younger?
Yes, I do. 50-50 joint legal and physical custody. Yes.
Okay. And I understand you're currently unemployed, right?
Say again?
You're currently unemployed.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay.
Unemployed, yes.
All right. Is that I understand you had some accident after these incidents all happened.
Yes, I have a compressed back, and so I had surgery October 22nd from S1, L5, L4, and L3. So I have about 38 screws in my back holding it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll see some relief at least from the surgery a lot of times.
I'm doing, I was in a wheelchair for a month, a walker for another month, and now I'm in a cane. And I have every expectation that I'll be okay.
Great. Well, it takes time, but little by little, if you keep up with that rehab, hopefully you'll start to feel better. I didn't have any other questions. I'm glad to see that your case was resolved.
Mhm.
That was one of the issues that I had made a note of, is that at the time that the proceedings happened before the board, you were still in constructive custody because it hadn't been finalized.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's been resolved since. I don't have any further questions. I would be, happy to support your application.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Seda, thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
I think 2024 was not a year that you really loved.
Worst year of my life.
And I so appreciate it. Lots of thoughts. But first, did you work with Dr. Richard Moore at the College of Southern Nevada?
Yes, he was there. Briefly, when I got hired on in 2003, I think he left. And then we had a couple presidents after that.
Yeah, but he helped start the facility or jumpstart when it was created.
Yes,
So
yes.
you guys, I think, were both there at the beginning. Just a great public servant to this state, and his wife was the mother of the Millennium Scholarship. We keep talking about college and kids, and you've got a I think a 13 and a 15-year-old, if that's what I
Yes.
heard. So hopefully, that's something that they might be able to enjoy someday.
Mm.
This is, reading the volume of material we got, the thing that seemed to not be able to get past the Gaming Control Board with your situation was the constructive custody. And so I'm reading a dated document. Did I just hear that there is no longer constructive custody on?
No, sir. And that was a problem with this case between the criminal case and the civil case. We kept going back and forth to court and it kept getting delayed and delayed.
Okay, so that important factoid that was on the record that was part of our consideration is no longer applicable. Can I confirm that?
Yes, sir.
I do have and I know that the subject of this proceeding is not to take additional evidence. I do have a copy of the court docket, and there is a reference in the recommendation to a review of the Las Vegas Justice Court case records. I don't know if I can submit that in response, but I do have a docket.
I don't believe that that's proper.
Understood.
I don't, I mean.
Understood.
You're 22 years in the Marine Corps. 10 years, I think, at Southern Nevada, or 20 years altogether between UNLV and the College of Southern Nevada. Some happened at your house that was unfortunate. But that's as far as I can see, the only issue in your entire life that has not been exemplary, is not public service, if not even heroic. And I'm going to echo Commissioner Solis Rainey here. I have great sympathy here. Staff is important. The Gaming Control Board, this is what they do every day. They're expert and they do their process, and I want to always respect that. And I respect this, but I feel that there have been subsequent developments, and I know, I've got to be careful on how I define that, but I'm not, I'm not an attorney, so perhaps I can use my ignorance of the law to be just common man and practical here. But I think if they're, what I know today, I think you would be a tremendous service to the gaming industry. Again, it was, one bad hour in an afternoon. With the decades of service you've provided to this country and this state and to your family, I'm also very amenable to your application today.
Thank you, sir.
Well, the problem I have is, from your point of view, that wasn't one bad hour in an afternoon because you didn't do any of this. And I look at, domestic violence is very serious and it is very complicated. There are reasons that people that are victims of domestic violence recant. There are reasons why they don't seek protective orders, why they don't ask to have the person arrested for stalking. Maybe they work at the Metropolitan Police Department and it's embarrassing, or maybe that person loses their job and then there's no ability to pay child support or whatever, or you don't want a divorce because you want to stay in the relationship. There can be a million reasons. And so I, unlike my colleagues, and I appreciate your service, I really do, but I can't ignore some of the more salient details in this record, and that it is, while you may not be in constructive custody, even though we're not going to take a record on that, I don't think there's any reason why I can't listen to your counsel and knowing the system like I do, believe that the case is closed. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, right? There is no status check.
No, it was closed on November 14th, I believe.
Okay. And so, so what we have to do here is we have to say, or I would feel, in order to accept what I'm anticipating will be support for sustaining of the or reversing the control board's objection, I would have to ignore video of you driving past your ex-wife's house when there was no reason to be, photos of bruises and observed bruises on the back and the chest at or around the time, coincidentally, of the alleged occurrences, supposedly from kickboxing class. That's just not, when I review everything in its total, this isn't criminal court, doesn't need to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I won't be joining my colleagues in that support of your application or your
Madam
appeal.
Chair, if I may, I was
I'm not going to
involved.
argue with you.
Okay.
I will give you an opportunity to be heard at the end.
Okay.
I wasn't
yes, ma'am.
asking you a question, I was making a comment.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Commissioner Silver?
I did have a question. I just want to reiterate. The victim in this domestic violence, your ex-wife, she's with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. She's employed.
That's correct.
And what's
yes.
her position there at
She's
Metro?
She's a project manager. She works out of the Enterprise Command. And she said in court that she approached her captain 3 times and the captain ordered a sergeant to come take over the investigation because it had been 4 months after the incident.
So
And
she testified in court?
it was during our sworn deposition for this civil case.
Okay, well, I'm not talking about the civil case. I'm talking about the criminal case.
Okay, that's
So
what she
she's a
meant.
civilian employee
Yes,
at
ma'am.
Metro.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm just going to echo what the chair had said, that these are very serious allegations. And despite what a district attorney may do as far as resolving a case, when I look at the totality of what happened here, I won't be supporting your application. Or I won't be supporting a reversal, as the evidence is quite strong in this case.
So at this time, does anybody else have any questions or comments they wish to make to all right, if you wish to be heard. The thing is, I didn't ask any questions of your client. That doesn't mean that he can't respond to what he's hearing from up here. He's perfectly capable and able, and I invite him to do so. What I try to do in these is treat similarly situated people the same. If I let it become a free-for-all, then I'd have to let it be a free-for-all for everyone. So it's not like I don't want him to comment. He is invited to comment if he so chooses. And now would be the appropriate time. Because what happens is then we get a motion, then we're talking amongst ourselves and it comes and people interrupt it. And so I've learned the hard way that I have to be a little rigid on the procedure. It's got nothing to do with him.
Understood. Mr. Seda, is there any
Yes.
further you'd like to?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I just wanted to share with you that while you're looking at these photos in the police report, my wife testified under oath that she hit herself during that argument. She's also been taking karate for 5 years. They spar on a regular basis. They train every week, Friday and Saturday. My wife's been in karate competitions. I never touched her. I will say this to you. I'm a good man. I'm a good father and I'm a good husband, despite having this divorce go through. I was in a loveless marriage for the last 10 years of my marriage. I stayed there because I wanted to be with my boys, my youngest boys at the time. I could not stay in that relationship anymore because it was toxic. We were absolutely at opposite ends of anything that came up with the kids, with the house, anything else in terms of our finances. And I quickly learned that no matter how much money I made, I was never going to be able to satisfy her. My wife is Canadian. The biggest hurdle that we had to cross over for this divorce was child custody. She said to me that when I get a divorce, I'm going to leave and take the boys with me to Canada. Because I refused to give her primary joint legal and physical custody. And I could not do that. I could not do that. She testified under oath that she hit herself, and I have a sealed transcript copy that I got from the court reporter. I never touched her. I know better than that. My mother and father raised me the right way. She's my wife and the mother of my children. I never touched her. This was all about child custody. And I'd ask you, I know it happened after the fact, but I'd ask you to consider that the fact that she did testify under oath. And she said that she hit herself.
For the record, that's not part of the hearing. That transcript isn't part of the hearing, and it can't be part of the hearing, not because I won't allow it to be, but because the rules require us to conform and to make our decision based on the record that we have. So I didn't hear any comment about the white vehicle with the red rims and very clear photographs driving past this woman's house on particular days. So I'm not sure that he wants to comment on that or not.
I can comment on that. We have two properties, and that was also my home. And I swung by there to see if trying to get some mail, if any mail had been sent to that location. You have to cross over to come around. It's a cul-de-sac. I didn't do anything to her. That's why I was there.
Counsel?
And under the NRS, it said the board may take action based on any cause deemed reasonable. I mean, I would merely point out, I talked about this before, how this body does not have investigative hearings where evidence is presented. And I think it's most appropriate in that situation to defer to findings where evidence, findings where evidence can be taken. And, you know, for lawyers, a lawyer doesn't get suspended on accusation from practicing law. You get disciplined if you have convictions. The same would be true with doctors. The same would be true for an undocumented immigrant. They would face deportation for conviction of an aggravated felony if they were convicted, but not based on mere accusation alone. And what we have here is, in terms of the most concerning matters for this commission, were mere accusations without fact finding. So the board is deprived of the opportunity, and the commission's deprived of the opportunity to make findings of credibility. But I would ask that under the totality of the circumstance that this commission consider the finding in the court of law, which was merely a conviction for disturbing the peace. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes the communication between Mr. Seda and the commission. And at this time, I guess I should ask my colleagues, does someone have a motion? And then we can discuss it. I don't know that we're going to have consensus, but that just takes a majority.
I move to reverse the Nevada Gaming Control Board's objection to Mr. Sandy Seda's registration as a gaming employee.
Discussion on the motion?
I just wanted to add that in making that motion and just in considering the specific facts of these case, I don't want to in any way minimize the importance of domestic violence and of people coming forward. But I've also seen the flip side of that, where unjustified accusations are made. And once the accusations are out there, it's very hard to get past them. I have to believe that the courts, I know the records of her testimony before the deposition are not before us, but his testimony as to what the content of that deposition was before us, I would expect that the family court would have looked into the background of these individuals in deciding how to award custody, and still decided that it was in the best interest of the children to have both parents involved. That carries weight in my mind. And just the exemplary, many, many years of exemplary service that this man has given, both as a police officer, as a campus police, that means a lot to me. And I just see this as one of those situations where, yeah, I don't feel the facts are as strong as others do, and I respect the fact that we have differences of opinion, but I believe reversal is appropriate in this case.
I would say, as far as giving deference to findings, I think that when cases get negotiated, there's nothing that stopped Mr. Seda from having a trial if he wanted to have one. And with the passage of time and the understanding that people lose their jobs, and then you go to a different hearing so much later and things change so much later. I think that I don't think that what happened in the court proceedings necessarily is findings of the court. That was clearly a negotiation. There was clearly domestic violence classes involved. There were clearly an order to stay out of trouble. He would have been put in custody faster than he could whistle Dixie if he had had any kind of problems with his soon-to-be or was ex-wife, estranged wife. And so I hear you and I respect your opinion. I would say that these are very complicated scenarios and that he does have a conviction, albeit not exactly for domestic violence. He could have had a trial. And if he hadn't done anything wrong and he wanted to plead not guilty and have a trial, he could have had one. My guess is he probably even could have had a trial on just the misdemeanor battery. But that's speculation, so I'm not going to rely on it. And so I'm not going to support the motion. I'm going to vote against it. Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to add one additional comment at the risk. Obviously I don't want this to be an argument because we all have our opinions and I respect everybody's opinion. But I believe the records that I reviewed indicated that there were some practical reasons for him not electing to go to trial. I mean, while our criminal justice system, I think, is the best in the world, there's a lot of realities that people often cannot afford to go to trial because it's thousands and thousands of dollars. I've had several clients over the course of my career that, were able to follow through on principle, but the cost was far more than they, had at stake. And mine were civil cases, but, I understand a lot of people take pleas also in criminal court for the same reason. So,
And I would just say, again, don't want to argue with you either, but we don't have a record of that here at all. So does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I would only echo Chair Tagliotti's comments as far as court proceedings and our background as well in domestic violence and looking at this record as a whole and not just what happened in a negotiated plea.
Commissioners Kurlicki or Markantonis?
Chair.
Can you take
Chair, obviously I respect all of my fellow commissioners and the Gaming Control Board processes and the individuals who work there. But I have to, in my own mind, just take into account Mr. Sada's service, both to his country and to our city and whatever. But also I think about those children and if they were here, what they would be doing. But nonetheless, I am inclined to support Commissioner Solis Rainey's motion.
Kurlicki, do you have anything to add?
Not to be redundant, but everyone else has spoken today, and I think it's important for the record. Again, as father of all daughters, the domestic violence, Commissioner Solis Rainey, I think you said it exceedingly well. I look at the evidence, that we have, and it's not clear. I think there's much interpretation here. As I've already said, it pains me greatly. I have to go through a big process to get through the Gaming Control Board process. But again, I think the constructive custody is important. My two fellow commissioners who have sat on the bench and who have the most experience in these cases, it pains me to be to remain in support of the motion. But again, I think this is important. This is a process. I'm proud of this commission. I'm proud of the Gaming Control Board. Now it's time to have a discretionary moment. But in the totality and 40 plus years of service, I'm still not sure what happened that afternoon. We can all speculate, but I don't know. And so given the totality into that uncertainty, then I'm going to support the motion.
Anybody else? All right, at this time, I think we need to make an individual vote so that the record is clear. All in favor of Commissioner Solis Rainey's motion, if you could say aye.
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 All right, so that would be Commissioners Markantonis, Krolicki, and Solis Rainey. The nays, nay. Silver and Tagliati. Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you please read in our next agenda item? No.
You have two regulation agenda items regarding proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulations 3.060 and 9.020 as noted on the agenda.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, I'm Ed McGaw. I'm here today to present both regs if Sebastian Ross is not available. He is up in Carson City for the legislature. So I've agreed, his reg is reg 3.060, mine is reg 9.020.
How much notice did you get?
How much notice? I got a week. He
Oh,
was very
excellent.
good. Yeah, so I was able to study it a little bit. So
Excellent.
I'm prepared to go with both regs, whichever you would prefer me to. Do you want to start with reg 3.060?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, good afternoon, Chair Tagliati, members of the commissions, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm Ed McGaw with the Nevada Attorney General's Office. Here today on behalf of the Nevada Gaming Control Board to present the proposed repeal of NGC Regulation 3.060. Before you today is a draft dated January 15th, 2025, which was approved by the board at its January 2025 meeting. If approved today, the repeal would become effective immediately. The basis for the repeal is that the grandfather clause created by the regulation is no longer relevant or necessary. The current version of the regulation was enacted to provide the grandfather clause to preserve all approvals of the commission relating to foreign gaming granted prior to July 1st, 1977, pursuant to the previous provisions of that regulation. Prior to 1977, the requirements relating to foreign gaming were governed by the regulations of the commission. In 1977, these requirements were moved up to the statutory level. The previous requirements set forth in Reg 3.060 were moved to NRS 463.690, which required prior commission approval to participate in foreign gaming. At that time, the grandfather clause was created to ensure that any previously granted approvals would not be affected. In 1993, the legislature repealed NRS 463.690, and making it more of a call forward type provision rather than a mandatory requirement for a prior approval before participating in foreign gaming. Because of this, any approval issued by the commission prior to July 1st, 1977 under NGC 3.060 were no longer required. This meant that the grandfather clause preserving such approvals was no longer necessary, and NGC regulation 3.060 can be repealed for this reason. With that, I conclude my affirmative presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, the board asks that you vote to repeal the regulation with an effective date immediately.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments on this request for the regulation change on 3.060? Does anyone have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that to adopt the proposed amendments to NGC Regulations 3.060 as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board in the draft dated January 15, 2025, and that this will become effective upon adoption immediately.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you. Moving on to regulation 9.020.
Good morning again, Chair Tagliati, members of the
If
commission.
only it were the morning.
Oh, afternoon, good afternoon. I wrote my script. I have both, but I'm an autopilot. So let me, for the record, good afternoon, Chair Tagliati, members of the commissions, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm Ed McGaw with the Nevada Attorney General's Office today, here today to present the proposed amendments to NGC Regulation 9.020 as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board in its draft dated January 15th, 2025. If accepted today, these proposed amendments would become effective immediately. The reasons for these amendments are twofold. First, these amendments provide procedures for people to follow to obtain the administrative approval pursuant to NRS that's laid out in NRS 463.1725. That statute was enacted to allow the chair of the board to administratively approve certain individuals to perform the functions of a licensee who is deceased or has been judicially declared disabled. Prior to the enactment of the statute, a person would have to have applied for and received a temporary license. The statute was intended to alleviate an estate from having to pay the full cost of a licensing investigation or having someone licensed when that license was only intended for a limited scope or duration. The second goal of these amendments is to streamline and simplify the process that must be followed when a licensee passes or has been declared disabled. Currently, the regulation is layered with various requirements that are difficult to follow, particularly by someone who is not represented by an attorney, which is often the case in these situations. It is hard enough to deal with circumstances, let alone to having to try to understand the complex process to ensure the continuance of a gaming establishment's business. If it pleases the chair, I can briefly walk through the proposed amendments.
Please.
Okay, starting with subsection 1. The intro language here is being reworded to clarify that the regulations apply to the death or disability of a person who holds an ownership interest in any licensed gaming business, which is defined in subsection 9 to include any business that holds a non-restricted or restricted gaming license. Next, the list of persons responsible for reporting the death or disability of the licensee to the board is broken out to make it easier to know who must provide such notification. In paragraph A, the term heir is added to make the list more complete. In paragraph B, the phrase licensed establishment has been changed to licensed gaming business to cover gaming licensees that don't necessarily operate a gaming establishment, such as the slot route operator. Paragraph C replaces language that referred to corporate licensees with language that refers to legal entities to make it clear that the regulation applies to all licensed legal entities, not just corporate licensees. Subsection 2 sets out what's required for a spouse, next of kin, heir, personal representative, or guardian to participate in the operations or receive proceeds therefrom. These requirements include holding a license that allows that person to participate or receive revenue, obtaining administrative approval pursuant to NRS 463.1725, or obtaining a temporary license to do so pursuant to the regulation. It should be noted that this does not change any of the existing requirements. Subsection 3 sets out the timeline to submit an application for administrative approval or for temporary license, which is 90 days of the death of the person if probate is not required, 90 days of the court order transferring control or ownership in the case where probate is required, or 90 days of the court order declaring the person disabled. Subsection 4 allows the chair of the board to extend the time period in which the relevant applications must be submitted. However, such requests must be made in writing prior to the expiration of the 90 days. Subsection 5 makes it clear that a person who submitted an application under this regulation is not permitted to participate in the operation of the licensed gaming business or receive proceeds therefrom until their application has been granted or the board chair has authorized otherwise. Subsection 6 allows for the submission of other necessary applications to facilitate the transfer of ownership or control at the same time the applications for administrative approval or temporary license are submitted, provided the person submits a copy of the trust or court order granting the person authority over the deceased person's estate or guardianship over the individual licensee. Subsection 7 sets out the requirements relating to administrative approval. Subsection 8 sets out the requirements regarding temporary licenses. And lastly, subsection 9 provides what a definition of the phrase licensed gaming business means. With that, I conclude my affirmative presentation and be happy to answer any questions the commissioner may have. Otherwise, the board requests that the commission vote to adopt the proposed amendments to become effective immediately.
Thank you. At this time, do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments that you wish to make on these on the proposed language and redaction or changes, I guess I should say? All right, does anyone wish to make a motion?
Madam,
Wait,
I move for the adoption of the proposed amendment to Nevada Gaming Control NGC Regulation 9.020 as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board in the draft dated November 6, is it? Excuse me, I want to make sure it's January 15, 2025, to become effective upon adoption.
any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Secretary, if you could go back to the first gaming registration appeal and call that, or read it into the record, excuse me again.
The remaining gaming employee registration appeal is Tommy Hill, case number 24LV00453. If he is here, the court reporter has requested we take a 5-minute break before that item.
So, I don't know, do I have to wait till the end of the meeting or can we go forward on his matter now? We haven't heard from him, correct? I mean, he was here and then he left. Maybe he had to go somewhere, but yeah, we've done it before. I just would think that if he was coming back or wasn't coming back, he might have told someone since he sat here for how long? How long was he here? A couple hours?
he was only here, it's about 11:45.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you.
About 11:45.
Okay, so he was here an hour and 45 minutes. But at this time, he's not come back and he didn't advise the staff or any of the agents that he needed a continuance or anything. Have you checked your email? Okay, all right. Well, unless anybody on the commission wishes to do something different, I believe we can proceed with the record that we have. It doesn't appear that anyone wishes to do something different. So at this time, does anyone have any comments? Or do you wish to have a motion? How would you like to proceed?
Make a motion. I move to sustain the Nevada Gaming Control Board's objection to Tommy Hill's registration as a gaming employee based on the record in front of us.
Discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor of Commissioner Silver's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and there are none opposed. Okay, all right, at this time, next on our agenda are the administrative reports for the board. Chief Hoffman.
Chair Hendrick and Member Sandal are at the legislature in Carson City regarding Senate Bill 36. So I am covering for them. And all I've got is information on the March board meeting. It will be Wednesday, March 12th in Carson City. At 9 a.m. We'll begin with 11 non-restricted items. And at 1 p.m., we will have 10 restricted items, and that will be followed by 1 patron dispute. And let's hope it doesn't snow.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So, Madam Secretary, I need to ask our Attorney General's office if you have anything today. Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, if we could close with our last agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
I just want to make a note that I know the court reporter asked for a break, but we're done, like, once I do the public comments. Okay, thank you. Okay, I will first go to Carson City. Is there anyone present in Carson City wishing to make a public comment? If so, please step forward to the podium. There's no one in Carson City wishing to make public comment. How about here in Boulder City? No one wishing to make public comment? Oh,
Madam,
go
just
ahead.
really, really briefly, I just wanted to extend an appreciation to Chief Hoffman. We're gonna miss you. I mean, I don't know if this is your last meeting, but
It's my last commission meeting.
Oh, wow.
I'll be here,
But-
I'll be present for the board meeting.
but you've always been super helpful before you were chief and through your tenure as chief, and I really appreciate that. I mean, your knowledge, the institutional knowledge you have about the board has been just so incredibly helpful in so many ways to many of us. So I wanted to thank you and wish you the very best in your retirement.
Well, thanks very much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, great loss.
Oh, I'm leaving the place in good hands.
Thank you for all of your service to the commission and the board, and I hope your retirement is a lot more relaxing than mine.
Me too.
I'm telling you what, retirement, it doesn't stick for a lot of people. So as hard as you've worked and as, much as you've done, I'm wondering if it's gonna stick as someone who kind of knows what your life has been like. I'm thinking you're gonna have a hard time.
That's possible. I'm definitely not thinking about anything full-time, but yeah, would be open to something part-time.
That's what I thought. That's a lot of talent going to waste, just gonna say. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else wish to make any public comment? All right, there being no additional public comment, that will close our public comment section and conclude the Nevada Gaming Commission meeting for the month of February. We are adjourned. Thank you.